I'd like to call the Monday, October 27th meeting of the Board of Selectmen to order. First, I would like to announce that this meeting is being recorded and ask if there's anyone in the audience who is also recording the meeting. Seeing none, could we rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The first thing I'll say is we expect a large crowd tonight due to the hearing later on in the agenda. I do have to ask that no one stand in the doorway. There are seats up front, or you can stand along the two sides, but the fire chief has asked that we keep the doorway clear, and this room has a capacity of 113. If we have any additional residents, the planning board room is open, and if you are watching the meeting from there, you'll have an opportunity to speak. Can we turn that down a bit so we don't have the echo? Right, but can we turn it down a bit? Thank you.
Yeah, that's what you're asking.
Okay. Okay. The first item we have is public comment, and we have Deb Grimo, the Assistant Town Clerk.
Hi, my name's Deb Grimo, Assistant Town Clerk, and I just wanted to announce that the John...
Deb, could you, I'm sorry, I don't think everyone can hear you, just...
Okay. My name's Deb Grimo, Assistant Town Clerk. Just wanted to announce that the John and Ethel Riley Outstanding Citizenship Committee met tonight, and they have chose Ken Ethia as this year's 2014 recipient. And the award will be given the Thanksgiving Eve service, but we don't know where that has been determined yet.
Great.
Okay.
Well deserved. Thank you for coming in. And we have Fire Chief Steve Coleman.
Good evening. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. I just wanted to take a quick minute to update the board. As you are aware, we received a federal Assistance to Firefighters grant in the amount of $344,000 over the summer for the purchase of new self-contained breathing apparatus and also some rapid intervention equipment. I just wanted to update the board that all of that equipment, we have taken delivery of it all. It is all in service to this date. And later on this evening, probably in about a half an hour or so, we will have some of that equipment here in the planning board room. We'll have one of the older models that was replaced, the new model, and one of the rapid intervention packs. So certainly anyone that's here in the audience, and I would certainly encourage the board that after the meeting, take a stop by and look at the equipment. It's an outstanding opportunity for the department to upgrade our equipment. We're very, very happy. So again, we will have it on display this evening. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Chief. What time is it? 7:03. We have a couple minutes to our first hearing. I'll entertain a motion to move up agenda item 5C, secondhand license GameStop.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So voted. Is the applicant for GameStop here? If you could go up to that microphone, please. Detective Sergeant Mills, if you can join us at the table. Good evening. If you could give your name and spell your name for the record, please, and tell us why you're here tonight.
My name is Russ Morris, M-O-R-R-I-S, and I am the store manager at the Auburn Mall GameStop, and I'm here to dispute the 1-month hold period that is being administered by the junk law, maybe to fight it down to possibly 2 weeks holding period.
Okay. Sergeant Mills. We have your application here. We actually were given no notice that you were going to do this, so I'm going to ask Sergeant Mills to address your request.
Thank you. Policy is working or in place and working very well, I think, for everybody else that's currently using it. I don't think the 30-day hold period is outrageous or out of line with anything. I would see no reason personally to change it just for that outlet. I mean, if you wanted to revisit it and change it for the entire, across the board, but at this point, I would leave the 30-day hold in place.
Okay. So, So members may recall, we've recently adopted the secondhand dealer's license. We worked extensively with Lieutenant Moss on this for the holding period, and we did have significant issues with previous license holders, and that's why we adopted the policy. I don't know if members have any questions or comments regarding the applicant's request, but it is the policy to hold it for 30 days. Mr. Simonian?
I'm curious as to why you want to change it.
The 30-day hold period, it hinders my business significantly. When it comes to the pre-owned video games and consoles and the product that we buy back from our consumers, that's our livelihood. For example, your average pre-owned title is bought and then resold to us and then sold back to the consumer about 6 times. So just with one game's lifespan, it's 6 times that it rotates through my store. So you can just imagine on a grand scale of things, when you come into my store and you see my pre-owned sections, just for the Xbox 360 alone, the numbers can be substantial. And just like anything else in pop culture, there's a small window time frame in which these games are popular or hot, and it's hard to tell my customers that come to my store that have loyalty in my store to go to another store that's 3 miles down the road to get their product.
Okay. And one of the reasons, one of the reasons why we have this part of the policy is, we've seen it with hearings that we've had here, where we've had some, stolen merchandise sold and then shipped off quickly. And do you see that? Do you see that kind of activity in this business? Because there are video games that I've played. My kids have some, and I know tons of their friends, and I can certainly see that point. And so I just wondered if that's an arena that you see a similar type of thing as we've seen with some of the jewelry and things.
Right. Like, as you stated, the reason or the idea behind the policy is to deter the trade in stolen property, and it allows us some investigative leeway as far as reporting. Breaking and enterings aren't always reported the day that they occur, or even a week after they occur. So if you're only talking about a 14-day hold, now now the investigative period shrunk to like 10 days or 12 days, versus if you have a 30-day hold, it allows you some leeway where another town is looking at something. It takes a little while to gather all that information. And while I'm not not that I'm not sympathetic to their business and dealing with the secondhand property that they do, or the trade-in property, it's the larger goal of it was to deter stolen property. And not that I'm suggesting that they traffic in stolen property or anything, but the game systems and the games themselves are commonly stolen items out of residential house breaks. They're very as common as jewelry, quite honestly.
Okay.
Mr. Holstrom?
Through the chair, Russ, have you had a chance to meet with the DCG, the department heads throughout the town?
That was the board, that was my
the board
first meeting?
yes.
Yes.
You've had a chance to talk to them?
Yes, sir.
I have what they had decided or talked about that you should do here with item description, the serial number, photo, name of the seller, photo of the seller, copy of the seller's government-issued ID, date of sale, time of sale. And you want to turn these around quickly. How are you going to be able to maintain those records in that shorter time period? It sounds like you're going to have a clerical person there just to be receiving and selling as it goes.
Right. For example, I have a case that I dealt with recently with the Auburn Police helping out the Spencer Police in a situation with a confiscation. Our company takes a lot of pride in the way that we handle our merchandise when it's coming on trade hold. Like you had mentioned, we take pictures of the product, we take pictures of the person selling the item. We also take a government-funded ID, whether it be a driver's license, a passport, something along those lines. All that information is entered into our system. It's held. At any point that an officer of the law or somebody of that authority needs that information, it's one email away to my LP department, and I can have that stuff right there to them. For example, you could give Sergeant Belford of the Spencer Police a call and ask him how the situation went with GameStop. Also, Detective Eric K. Dyson of the Auburn Police. He was the gentleman that I dealt with.
Mr. Holstrom?
Just as a follow-up, I can picture this, from what you explained, that the videos, the games will come in and go out that quickly, and it reminds me of the days we used to get videos down at the square. And, you know, you're looking for that one movie, well, I've got it here, well, then it comes in one hand and goes right out the other. Somehow, something's gonna get lost in recording that purchase and sale.
Well, when it comes in, it's all registered through my POS system. So I have an entire log of everything that a customer's going to bring in my store and look to trade in. They're not receiving any money from my store for the traded item that doesn't pass through my POS. It's all documented, and like I said, every item is documented with a picture. Also, it's got serial numbers. Everything's got a SKU number associated with it. I have a list here of the items that were confiscated, if I could, you know, pass it forward and show you the board. I understand that it kind of closes the window for investigation, but this investigation involved 2 towns and was done in a pretty much a 2-week matter of time. They took the confiscation, and I don't think 2 weeks is too long, too short a time. I just think a month is a long time to hold something in my back room that is hindering not only my business but also to the community, to the consumer who is losing out on, you know, the next title that they need to get a hold of.
Okay, thank you.
Detective Sergeant Mills, do you know if there was a representative from the police department at the DCG meeting?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. My only concern, I guess, or comment would be, I wasn't aware of any of these concerns.
Correct.
I corresponded with the corporate level for GameStop, and they were very receptive, and they actually started reporting prior to, obviously, you know, getting the license. But this is the first I'm hearing of the concern for the whole period. That's...
Okay, thank you. Mr. Simonian?
Well, a couple of things. On this email with the DCG bullet points, one of the points says, holding all items on site for 14 days. Is that the recommendation of the DCG?
That's correct.
Those are our notes from Adam.
So they're actually recommending a 14-day hold versus a 30-day hold?
It's under my understanding that there's other secondhand dealers in the same establishment as I am that have a 2-week hold period. For example, Best Buy Mobile has a 2-week hold period, and I take further steps than most of the secondhand dealers in the mall does, along the lines of taking the pictures, documenting it, holding it for 30 days in a separate secure area, and
All secondhand dealers are required to, you know, conform with the adopted policy, which is 30 days.
the board had told me otherwise. They said that it was something to do with the fact that they were grandfathered in. It was discussed at the board.
Yeah, it may have been previous to this year's applications, but all secondhand license holders are required to hold a product for 30 days. Mr. Simonian?
You made a comment, and I just want to make sure I understand. Did you say that you don't, if someone brings something in, they don't get money for it?
No. We offer 2 forms of currency. We offer store credit and we offer cash. In order to receive either, the person needs to be at least the age of 18 and have a government-issued ID. So that way, we document who they are and what they're selling to us.
So everything that someone comes in to trade in, either for a store credit on buying another game or a system, or for cash, is immediately put into your POS.
Immediately, before any merchandise is exchanged, they're recorded into the system.
Now, you also said that, correct me if I'm wrong, I think you said that there have been times where you've actually told a customer to go to a competitor because you'd rather even if it means losing the business, you'd rather see them get what they were looking for, or something to that effect?
Correct. What
So
it is,
If that's true, is that someone outside of Auburn that you're sending them to?
what it is if a customer comes in looking for a pre-owned title that I do not have, I'm going to keep their business within GameStop's business, and I will send them to Millbury, Hobbs Crossing in Sturbridge, Southwest Cutoff in Worcester. I'll send
Okay.
them to another
Fair enough.
GameStop.
That answers my question. I appreciate it.
But I'd like to keep,
This is one of those things that for me is tough, because you do understand the reason why this policy was put into place. I don't know if you're aware, but we've had, the buying and reselling of stolen merchandise, and we've had several cases with, especially some of our gold purchase shops. To change the policy, the conundrum for me is, I don't want to change the policy for everyone, because I think that puts us right back into that boat of opening up the issue of people, hey, I know I can go to Auburn, break in houses, steal jewelry, and sell it the next day, and there's no repercussions. On the other hand, I don't want to write a policy that hurts businesses in town. So for me, that's the issue here.
I'll just say, for the purpose of tonight's request, because town council is here, I've asked for an opinion from town council. He does not recommend changing our policy tonight for one license holder. We should be consistent if the board wants to revisit our policy, but for the purpose of tonight's, and this is just to keep the timeline as
That's fine.
advised by the state. The board, we can put it on our next agenda, but certainly town council doesn't recommend
No, that's fine. I don't want
varying
to
from
change
our
it
own
across.
policy.
As I said, I don't want to change it across the board either, but I don't want to hurt businesses in town either, because we've worked so hard to bring businesses here. So, I mean, somewhere in the middle, I think maybe there's an answer, but putting it on another agenda is fine with me.
Okay.
and again, I just want it to be known that I'm not looking to abolish the hold or the procedures that I take to document the goods that are sold or bought in my store. I'm just looking for a little wiggle room on the hold period, so that way my business isn't struggling.
I appreciate the fact that you've been as cooperative as you have, and I think you raise valid points. There's, you can write law after law, make policy after policy, but everything doesn't fit neatly always within it. So maybe there's a reason to revisit it. Thank you.
I'm going to
you.
recognize Sergeant Mills next.
If I may, just, I wasn't obviously part of the creation of the policy, but my understanding from speaking to Lieutenant Moss was the spirit of the policy was to ensure uniform reporting. And the problem with the GameStop, the way they were keeping track through their POS system, as he said earlier, was it wasn't searchable. It wasn't available to us. It was only available through their loss prevention after you made a specific request. And at least now, if they're brought under the licensing requirements, they're submitting, in an Excel spreadsheet, the information that we've requested through NESPN, so we're able to search that, and other departments that have access are able to search it, by name, by serial number if they have it, by even game title, depending on, obviously, the accuracy of the records. So it's, again, to ensure the uniform reporting of it, like I said, I'm sympathetic somewhat to, to the turnover of the business thing, but the policy is the way it is for a reason.
I understand, thanks.
Okay, thank you.
So is there a motion to approve the license per the Board of Selectmen's policy?
I guess he'd call the max, so he doesn't know if that's...
I'm going to make a motion that we deny the license at this time.
They have a current license, it's just to keep it on.
Deny the
The request?
the request from 30 days to 14 days.
Okay, is there a second to deny the 14-day request? Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? Mr.
So,
Simonian?
If we vote on this motion, are we saying we're not going to discuss it, or even consider the possibility of future meeting? Is that what
No, we're denying it for the purpose of tonight's
Okay.
license. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, so voted. Is there a motion to approve the license per the current Board of Selectmen's secondhand policy?
Did you get that? I was opposed to it. I just want to make sure that.
Okay, yep, Sharon got it.
Yeah.
This is to bring their current license in the timeline as required by the state. So it's just to approve the license per our own secondhand policy.
So moved.
Is there a second? Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So voted. Thank you, and we'll get back to you on any updates with the review of the policy,
Okay, thank you.
and consider your input. Thank you. Are you here for anything else, Sergeant Mills? Thank you for coming in. We have a 7:05 hearing for Jonathan Santora for Santora Automotives LLC. Is the applicant here? Is the applicant in the other room? If we can just be sure that the applicant is not in the other room. We'll open the hearing and then continue it to the next meeting. Okay. Is there a motion to open the hearing?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
The hearing is open. The applicant is not here. Is there a motion to continue the hearing?
Make a motion, we continue the hearing till, 7:20, just in case he wanders in.
Okay.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So voted. We have a 7:10 hearing for Richard Lundgren Incorporated for a motor vehicle Class 2 license at 525 Washington Street. Is the applicant here? Applicant for Lundgren Honda. We're going to check the other room. There are seats in front if anyone would like a seat. We just need to be sure that we keep the doorway clear. Lundgren Honda? No? Is there a motion to open the hearing?
Motion to open.
Is there a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So voted. Is there a motion to continue the hearing?
Motion to continue to 7:20 in case they come in.
Is there a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So voted. We have AMR Auto Holdings LLC doing business as Prime Ford. Is the applicant here? Good evening. You have a laptop there, so you're welcome to come up and sit in this seat here. I think it'll be a little easier for you. Is there a motion to open the hearing?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So voted. The hearing is open. Good evening. If you could just give your name and spell your name for the record and tell us why you're here tonight.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Matt McGovern, representing Prime Motor Group. I'm sorry to spell my last name. Last name is McGovern, McGovern.
Excuse me one moment. There are some seats up here. We need to keep the doorway clear, please. There's two more over here. Thank you. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
My name is Matt McGovern, representing Prime Motor Group. We are currently, we plan to purchase the Ford dealership at 780 Washington Street sometime next week from Mr. Jim Langway. And tonight's application is to apply for a Class 1 license at that location.
Okay. Do board members have any questions? This is the Langway Ford on Route 20. It has been properly advertised. And you have recommendations from the DCG in your packet. Mr. Holstrom.
Through the chair. Mr. McGovern, I know that the Langway Ford now is a new car automobile dealer. Are you going to be doing new and used? Are you going to be doing repairs, body work? Can you explain a little bit about what your operation is going to entail up there?
Sure, it will be a full-service dealership selling new vehicles, used vehicles, and we will do service repair work. We do not intend to do body work on site at this point.
Thank you.
Are there any other board questions or comments? Is there any public question or comment? If you can go up to the microphone, please, give your name and spell your name for the record?
Hi, my name is Rick Kelly. I'm one of the abutters of presently Langway Motors, which this company is moving into. I just want to make clear for myself and the rest of the abutters that there are no changes physically in the property expansion into, there is vacant property in the area, privately owned by whoever.
There's nothing before the board at this time for an expansion. I don't know if you want to address that, but before us tonight, there's no expansion in our request.
That's correct. We do not intend at this juncture. We're just initially purchasing the property, renting the property, and purchasing the dealership assets. At such point, we may need to renovate the building, and we will obviously go through the normal permitting measures when we do intend to do any improvements on the site.
Yeah. Well, when I remember coming up here when Langway was buying the business from
Millbury.
Yeah. There was a question about some noise with the outside speakers facing towards us, and that's been rectified. I just want to make sure it doesn't go back to the old way.
Those were allowed.
And the other thing that really kind of bothers me is any kind of reconstruction or any kind of land work that you may or may not be planning in the future. Everybody on that street that abuts your property has a well. And in the past, any kind of construction, even Home Depot, it disrupted the water table. So if there would be any, future, takeover of land or something like that, we should be notified, yes?
Yes, if it would go before the planning board,
Yeah.
and you would receive a butter notification through the planning board.
Okay, that's it.
Thank you. If there's, are there any other public comment or question? Seeing none, is there a motion?
Motion to close the hearing.
Second.
All those in favor of closing the hearing? Any opposed, so voted. Is there a motion regarding the application?
I make a motion, we approve the license, provide all applicable requirements of the state and town, and any of its departments, boards, and commissions have been fulfilled. Said license subject to all the conditions stated upon it. Fail to comply with any and all the conditions shall invalidate the license and render it null and void, and with the conditions of the DCG to be placed on the license.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, so voted. Thank you and good luck.
Thank you very much.
I just want to be sure. Mr. Carpenter, your motion was to hold those hearings to 7:20?
Yes.
Is the applicant for, hold on one second, let me go back to my agenda. Jonathan Santora? Richard Lundgren, application? We'll move on with the agenda. Attorney Hennigan? If you'd like to come up and join us, please. So we have a public hearing on the South Hold Road land, notice of intent to sell or other use per Mass General Law, Chapter 61A, Section 14, land along South Hold Road and South Hold Meadow Road. Is there a motion to open the hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The hearing is open. So I just want to, because I'm sure there are many people here for this hearing tonight, so the town manager will give a presentation. Attorney Robert Hennigan will give the legal explanation to the purchase or action. I will open it up to Board of Selectmen questions, then I'll open it up to public question or comment. I will ask that people come up to the microphone once, give your name for the record, and spell your name for the record. So we're going to move this along. Town Manager Julie Jacobson is going to do a PowerPoint presentation.
Good evening, members of the board, all those who are here tonight. I want to just mention that if anyone cannot see this, we're more than happy to make it available to you. We will post this on our website tomorrow, so if for any reason something can't be seen, you can absolutely see copies of it. This evening, I've been asked by the members of the Board of Selectmen to go over the process of this notice of intent to sell Chapter 61 land off of Southold Road. I've also been asked to go over potential impacts, and I just want to state for the record that the impact analysis is very difficult right now. We do have one that we will present tonight, and the reason it's difficult is that the buyer, the proposed developer, has not specified to the town, as they came before the Board of Selectmen on October 14th, exactly how many units they are proposing for multifamily housing. So I want to just make it clear that every impact analysis that you see tonight is based on a number that we are just estimating, looking at a project in Holden that is similar. The developer may come forward and ask for more units, and the developer may ask for less. We do not have that information right now, that it's not required to be provided to us as part of this notice. So I want to move on with this. Let's see. Give me 1 second. So the process is, the town received a notice of intent to sell for other use per Mass General Law, Chapter 61A, Section 14, land along Southold Road and Southold Meadow Road. The letter was dated August 12th, 2014, received by the town on August 13th, 2014. The seller is Sylvia C. Post Family Limited Partnership 1 and Sylvia C. Post Family Limited Partnership 4, Robert C. Post General Partner. The buyer is Tiltime Investment Corporation in Holden, Mass., for the purchase of approximately 50 acres, and technically it's 49.39 acres, of Chapter 61A land, which is agricultural land off of Southold Road. Notice was sent as part of the 61A process by certified mail from the seller to the following: the Auburn Board of Selectmen through the town clerk, the Auburn Board of Assessors to the chief assessor, the Auburn Planning Board, and the Auburn Conservation Commission, as well as a statute to the Mass Department of Conservation and Recreation. These were all mailed on August 12th. The town has 120 days following the date of deposit of the complete notice in the U.S. mail, according to the law, to waive, exercise, or assign its first refusal option to purchase the land. Therefore, the Board of Selectmen must vote to waive, exercise, or assign its first option to purchase by December 10th. That is 120 days from the date of the notice, which is August 12th. Here's the timeline that I thought might be helpful. August 12th, again, the notice was sent to town officials. August 13th, we received it. August 14th, I met with the buyer and his attorney to discuss the proposed sale and the reuse. At that time, I was given some information on the project. The project was still being developed. Not everything was final. I asked the developer to, as soon as they were prepared, to come in and speak to the Board of Selectmen, hopefully in mid-September, when they had their plans together, to give the board all the information they needed so they could make their vote by December 10th. The developer was not able to come in until October 14th. At that time, as the board knows, the developer came in and presented somewhat of a plan for what they're doing. And I say somewhat because, again, for the multifamily units, there were no numbers that were involved. On August 25th, the town administration sent a letter to the planning board, the ZBA, and Concom. We realized that under the law, Chapter 61, only planning board and Concom were notified, not ZBA, but we felt that it would be important to notify them as well. We sent them a letter letting them know that they had received the notification and asking them to give comments back to the administration by September 26th. I would tell you that the planning board did meet to review this project, and while they did not take a vote, they decided unanimously to recommend, without a vote, because it wasn't a planning board vote per se, to recommend the town not purchase the land. It is my understanding the ZBA also, I talked to the chair the other day, the ZBA also did discuss it, and actually I believe they did take a vote for the town to purchase the land. And the Conservation Commission, my understanding is they had a discussion about it and took no position. On August 25th, town administration, myself, and others met with the Greater Worcester Land Trust. We wanted to find out if there was any opportunity for the town to assign its right of first refusal to the land trust. Sometimes that can happen if the land trust has a lot of funds behind it. It could maybe help the town out with a purchase. So we wanted to explore that option, and we also had several conversations with Mass Audubon to see if maybe they would be interested. I would tell you that as of today, neither organization has the funds to do that. They were both very helpful. They contacted the state, they contacted the Department of Agriculture, DCR, trying to help us identify potential funds to purchase this. At best, we could probably only come up with a couple $100,000, and even then, chances are we could not, and I will show you later why, but the state was not willing to commit any funds whatsoever to the town. We would still have time to look for that, but we still have to, if the board opts to purchase, you still have to make the commitment to purchase the land for $2.865 million, which is the total price. On October 14th, the buyer and Attorney Mark Donahue, the attorney for the buyer, attended a Board of Selectmen meeting, and they did present their concept for residential development, which I'll get into. This evening, we're opening the public hearing, and the Board of Selectmen can close the hearing, or you can keep it open until such time that you actually take your vote, which would have to be done by December 10th at the latest. Tonight on the agenda, in case the board wanted to go this route and send it to town meeting, I just want to explain, the board has three options: exercise its right to purchase, assign its right, or waive its right. The board, in order to exercise its option to purchase, needs an authorization from town meeting to appropriate the funds. So you could not take that vote this evening because you have to go to town meeting. So in anticipation of having to do that, we have a couple of items on your agenda, which would, one, open and close a warrant for November 25th for a town meeting, and number two, we are recommending that you would establish the town meeting, actually vote to have it on November 25th. Also recommend that you probably leave the hearing open until such time after a town meeting vote, if that's the route the board wants to go, at which point then you could come back and make your decision, because you would know if you had the funds appropriated or not. On November 10th, we would have to send out the notice of the special town meeting. And then again, 25th would be the special town meeting, which would authorize the town to purchase 49.39 acres of Chapter 61 land. And you'll see later in the presentation, potentially to add an additional sum of money to build a road. If the board decides that they want the town to go forward and purchase the land and become a developer, we would be required to put in a road. Between November 26th, so the day after the town meeting, and December 9th, the Board of Selectmen can continue their hearing on any one of those days. We're recommending that the board probably may want to have their final vote on December 9th, the final date being the 10th, but you have a regular meeting on the 9th. You could also have another special meeting prior to that, where this may be the only item on the agenda. If the board does vote to exercise its right of first refusal, a purchase and sale agreement must be provided to the seller at the time of that vote. The town would have 90 days from the close of your vote to actually close on the land. So again, here are the options. The town can exercise its right of first refusal to purchase the land. You can do it for one of two things. You can do it entirely for the preservation of open space, so you're preserving all the acreage, or you could do so for town purposes. And then you could plan to sell what we're calling Phase 1 and Phase 2, as identified by the developer, for single-family lots. And I just want to make note that there are approvals in place for Phase 1 and Phase 2. The Phase 1 approvals initially were for 25 single-family home lots. 21 of them are in Chapter 61 land, 61A. There is also approvals in place as early as 2010 for Phase 2, which is a 13-lot subdivision. Under this potential, if you wanted the town to purchase the land for town purposes, the town could try to resell the Phase 1 lots and/or the Phase 2 lots, and I will show you that impact analysis later. The town would have to build and improve the road and bring in related utilities in order to sell the parcels as residential parcels. Second option, town can assign its right of first refusal to a not-for-profit for the preservation of open space. Again, we've been exploring that option. At the current time, there is no agency that is willing to have us make this assignment. The only thing that could possibly be done would be the Greater Worcester Land Trust would agree to step in as an assignee, but with the understanding that the board would be paying them the full amount. So all that does is just send the $2.865 million, it puts it in holding until you actually provide the funds to the Greater Worcester Land Trust, and then it reverts back to the town. And lastly, the town can waive its right of first refusal. If this happens, as we learned from the meeting on October 14th, the town could then work with the developer under a program called the Local Initiative Program to negotiate and facilitate a so-called friendly 40B project. A 40B project under state law is a project that must have a minimum of 25% affordable units. And I want to make it clear, affordable units are not subsidized units. I've been asked the question, so I want to make sure everyone understands. They are not subsidized units, they're affordable units, meaning that those who move into those units have to be at 80% of median family income. The developer could also initiate a 40B project with no town input, which is what you call a so-called unfriendly 40B project, in which case, in either case, the developer under a 40B can bypass zoning regulations for this project. If you work under the Local Initiative Program, which is what the developer has indicated to the board he would like to do, the developer would like to work with the town and the Board of Selectmen to negotiate what this project would look like. If you waive your right of first refusal, this is where it stands based on what the developer presented to us. The developer has indicated he will likely develop Phase 1 into 25 single-family homes. And again, 21 of these are in Chapter 61A land on Southold Road. The developer will look at extending the current Phase 2 subdivision plan, which was approved in 2010, which has also received approvals. And the developer has indicated that he would most likely or possibly develop multifamily housing. The multifamily housing may include this 40B or local initiative program that I just mentioned, and that's a decision that the developer is looking to the BOS for input. Under both of those, once again, minimum of 25% of the units are affordable units. All of the units are built the same. There is no difference in the construction. The 25 units are random. None of them look different from any other unit. I want to go through a couple of the impact analysis now. And again, I just want to remind everybody that this is really, it's a difficult thing to do an economic impact analysis when you don't have real numbers yet from the developer. So I will tell you that we looked at the town of Holden, we've met with the town of Holden. This particular developer has developed a project called the Reserves on Salisbury, which is on Salisbury Street in Holden, and it does have 25% affordable units. It's 192 units in Holden. We've also, they have shared with us their economic impact analysis for that project, so we based a lot of our assumptions on the assumptions that they use, so I will show you that. So to keep the number fairly simple, we said that for purposes of this only, we're using the number 190 units. And based on the breakdown that was done in Holden, we're suggesting, based on that, that we would, you're going to use for our numbers, 10 three-bedrooms, 128 two-bedrooms, and 52 one-bedroom. And again, this is strictly based on what Holden did. We don't know if this will be the case. And this also would include 25 single-family homes, 3 to 4-bedroom homes. So I'm going to show you the overall. The estimated annual real estate taxes on the project with 190 units plus 25 single-family homes, $570,570 annually. Annual auto excise taxes, $94,080. Annual sewer revenues, $11,163.70. Total estimated annual revenues, $675,813. One-time revenues. These are revenues the town would receive once upon the application for the permit fees, the sewer connection fees, and the rollback tax, which is paid to the town when land comes out of agricultural 61A land. The owner does owe the town back taxes for that. One-time revenues, net building permit fees based on the total build-out analysis that we are estimating, again, for 190 units, and based on the same numbers that Holden actually had for the real build-out there. $231,375. Sewer connection fees, $696,114. And the rollback tax paid to the town, a little bit shy of $90,000, 89 and change. For a total one-time estimated revenues of $1,017,489. I won't go through the entire thing, but I just want to show you, we have a slide on each calculation, so you will know exactly how we came up with this. And I can go back to it, but I will really quickly go through it because there are quite a few. But basically, we are using a projected estimated value of $23 million for a 190-unit development, with a $10 million estimated value for 25 residential homes, possibly valued at $400,000. Again, this is just an estimate. Times the current tax rate, and using the 2014 tax recap sheet, and that's where we get the $570,570. The estimated auto excise tax revenues, we've estimated industry standards are 2 cars per single-family home, 1 car per apartment. So using the excise tax, current excise tax of $2,944,128 divided by the number of households in the 2010 U.S. Census of 7,508, there is $392 per dwelling unit of excise tax. If we use the multipliers of 1 for the apartment complex and 2 for each single-family home, that's where we get the $94,080. Estimated sewer fee revenues, I won't go through this because I know it's very hard to see, but the one-time revenue fee of $696,114,000 is based on, again, the number of bedrooms total between all the units, the gallon usage per day, and connection permit fees. So in addition to the one-time fee, as we mentioned on the previous slide, the net revenue to the town is $11,163. So if you take estimated costs, and again, I'm going to show you how we got to some of this, and I'm also going to tell you that this is extremely conservative in the sense that we've gone high on these estimates because we didn't want anyone to say that we tried to cut down the costs. We are giving you costs and probably going on the high end of those costs. Schools, $248,945. Police, $114,440. Fire, 0. Road maintenance, $30,000. So total estimated annual costs, again, on the 190 units, 25 single-family homes, $393,385.40. Now, I'd like to show you how we did that. 2 different models. Town of Holden and other towns utilize the 2003 UMass Donahue Institute analysis on multipliers and indicators for residential housing build-out. So based on those numbers, when we use that formula, which is what Holden has used for the exact same developer, it comes out to be about 400 new residents. The school age multiplier under the UMass Donahue Institute multiplier system shows, you can see the analysis there, comes out to, let's just round it to 31 new students of school age children in the 190 units. Using the same formula, the 25 units, the 25 single-family homes would result in 9 children. So that's 40 new students in grades K through 10. It averages, we have no way of knowing, we don't even know if this is going to be, it's just an economic indicator, but we just spread it across grades K through 12. Again, we don't know where those children are going to be. If that's the case, it's about 3.07 students per grade. The estimated school-age children, again, I looked at one more study just to see if perhaps that study was any different than another study. We didn't want to just go by one. So we looked at the 2007 National Multifamily Housing Council study, which shows that new construction, and again, this is for new construction, not existing, which is this project, the numbers were actually higher for reused properties. That there would be 64 school-age children per 100 single-family owner houses. So 25 homes would generate approximately 16 school-age children. So as you can see, that is higher than the UMass Donahue study, but on the other side, the 190 units on this study were actually lower, and the formulas came out fairly close. This is showing that there'd be 29 school-age children per 100 apartment units. So if you put this to 190 units, under this formula, you'd have 55.1 school-age children in the 190 units, plus the 16 school-age children, for a total of 71 school-age children. So between the two studies, were between 40 and 71 new children. The school superintendent, the business manager at the school, had contacted the town of North Andover, which recently did a 205-unit apartment complex, and they actually have real numbers, and their real numbers were that they added 45 students to their enrollment. and that's just about the same as this. So both of these statistics are showing almost identical to what actually happened in a real case scenario. I would also tell you that the CFO, Ed Kazanovich, and myself met with Dr. Mary Ellen Brunel, the school superintendent, and I don't want to speak for her, but I will say that during the course of the conversation, when we're trying to, again, it's hard to model these numbers, she did say that 3 to 4 students per class spread out, the school can absorb. That's not an issue. We don't know where those students are coming. In some of the very lower grades, 1 or 2 of the classrooms may be tight because you don't want to go over 25 students per class. Again, this is just an average that we're looking at. She also made a comment that when you take, the dollar amount that we use to come up with that school impact, that we're using a figure of $6,223.63 per student. That's Auburn's cost to educate a child. That was net the revenue that comes in from the state for reimbursement, because the actual cost is somewhere around $12,900. But when you reduce out the state aid, the town pays $6,223. And this is where I'm saying we're being very generous on the estimate. At a maximum, the estimate for the 40 children would be $248,945.20. But we need to keep in mind, as the school superintendent said, it's not exactly that cost, because their per student cost includes having a single superintendent. It already includes principals. Adding 40 new children isn't going to add another principal. So there are some fixed costs in that number. So that number would actually be reduced. It could even be minuscule, depending on what grades those children went into, where the cost could really just come out of additional books. So we really don't know. So we are being very generous in saying $248,000, but it most likely won't be anywhere close to that number. Estimated police costs. Again, we wanted to be consistent, so we used the formula that the town of Holden used, and using that formula, it comes out that the associated public safety costs based on budgets and populations would be $114,440. The police chief has recommended, at this time, 1 full-time patrolman with a master's degree in benefits at a cost of $81,829. So 114, 81, it's very similar formula-based. We, for purposes of this, again, are using the higher number. We're not showing the minimum, we're showing what we believe to be the maximum. So there may be a 1.3 FTE increase. Fire, town of Holden, again, used the same formula and came up with an associated fire cost of $74,820. Our fire chief contacted the fire chief in Holden and was told that actually there was no impact on their budget. Their call volume since the reserve at Salisbury opened has been 11 additional calls for the entire time they've been open, which is a little bit over a year. The fire chief has indicated that the fire department can absorb 11 additional calls with no cost. I have trouble seeing this, and I'm looking at it, so I'm sure you do, but this is the calculation for the estimated road maintenance costs that DPW director provided for us, and that comes out to $30,000 a year, and it's based on the length of the roads and labor costs, equipment costs, and took into effect street sweeping, equipment, salting and plowing, road paving, cleaning catch basins, brush cutting, potholes, miscellaneous, detention pond maintenance, and Chapter 90 reimbursement, for a total annual cost of $30,000. Again, these are all impacts if the development were to go forward as we heard it from the developer. So if you take the estimated net revenues minus the estimated annual costs, the net total revenues to the town after all the costs would be $282,427.60, plus the one-time revenues of $1,017,489. Wanted to go one step further. Those are the economic impacts to the town administration, to the town operating budget, and again, that's a net increase, not a net decrease. Just wanted to go one step further and show you there is a calculator that you can look at economic impacts on projects, and they're based on congressional districts, so they look specifically at the economic indicators in your area. We are in the 2nd congressional district, and basically 100 apartments in our district generate $757,000 in economic contribution, meaning economic contribution to the local economy. So you'd double that. So you'd be around $1.5 million. The construction alone generates $24 million in economic contribution to the state economy, and understanding both of these are jobs, revenues, taxes, activity in your local retailers and your local services. And the residents who live in 100 apartments annually generate about $6 million for the local economy. Here's the analysis. This is your second option. If the town purchased the land, so if you exercise your right of first refusal, and this analysis was done based on the town purchasing the land and developing or selling 21 to 34 of the single-family lots. And I say that because Phase 1 would be 21 lots. If the town just wanted to develop Phase 1 and leave Phase 2 and Phase 3 for open space, or if the town wanted to develop Phase 1 and Phase 2 and leave Phase 3 for open space. So, here are the costs. $2.865 million is the purchase price. The estimated roads, including utilities, 1.2 to 1.5. For purposes of here, we went with the higher number of the 1.5 because should the board decide to go forward and have to go to town meeting, you don't want to underestimate the cost of your roads because you've got to appropriate money for borrowing. So you've got to make sure you cover that cost. So the associated cost of borrowing $4.4 million over a 15-year term would be $754,000. That's the total interest over that 15-year term. We did not include, because we don't have any way of knowing that yet, but there are also issuance and borrowing costs every time you do go out to borrow. We did not put them in here. The other thing we did not put in here, but I want to stress would be necessary. If the town is going to become a developer, and we are going to build a road, and we are going to market land, and we are going to sell the land, and we are going to do this over a long period of time, we need to have the capacity to do that. At a minimum, I would tell you that you need one full-time person to do that, and that's very conservative. You most likely need two, or 1 plus 1/2 plus 1/2. This is something that I don't want to put a cost here, because it's not fair to say that, but I bring it up because I think we need to build the capacity to do this. And this also, I just want to note that if you do this option, the proceeds of the sale of the lots under DOR regulations are required to be used to pay down your borrowing debt and interest costs. So the estimated cost to the town to purchase the land would be, and build the road, and then sell off the parcels to offset it, which we'll show you later. The total estimated cost of the town, $5,119,000. Revenues, two different scenarios. If you sell 21 lots, we used an estimate of $80,000 each. I believe that's high. I think you can, some lots you may be able to get 95 or 100,000 in this market. That's not the numbers that we're seeing, but you may be able to. But when you flood a market with 21 house lots, you're not going to get maximum price for all 21 house lots. So the average staggered over a period of time is about 80,000 each. You could potentially bring in $1.68 million. If you sold all 34 lots, which would be Phase 1 and Phase 2, at the same price, you're looking at an offset of $2.720 million. So the total cost to the town, if we were to just go forward and purchase it and sell off the 21 lots under Phase 1, $3,439,000. If the town were to purchase the land and sell off 34 house lots, and again, I say to sell off, it may be quite some time that it takes to sell them. There's no guarantee of buyers, but should that happen, the town cost would reduce, and it would cost $2,399,000. Here is the last option available to the board. If the board exercises its right of first refusal and purchases the land and intends to use the entire acreage, all 49.39 acres, as open space. Purchase price again, $2.865 million. Total interest cost on this is only on the $2.865 because you're not having to add in the cost of developing a road. So $552,000. So the total cost to purchase, $3,417,000. The cost, if you divide that by the 49.39 acres, the cost that you're spending to purchase an acre per acre of land for open space is $69,184. The assessed valuation of that land, if it were to be used as open space, according to the assessor, and there is a standard formula that is used under DOR, the land would be assessed at $317,000. So the cost per acre, based on the assessment value, would be $6,418. That's if we had gone out, got an appraisal, and the appraisal came in around $317,000. That's probably in the ballpark of what you'd be paying. The town would have to get 3 appraisals. We'd have to follow a whole Chapter 40B process. But the point I'm making is the cost per acre is approximately 10 times more under this purchase and sale than if the town had the ability to go out and get appraisals and purchase it as open space. If you want to compare it to two recent open space transactions in Worcester County, Muir Meadow property was 50 acres, and that was purchased for $1 million, so that's $20,000 an acre. Sibley Farm was purchased for 350 acres, and that was $3 million, $8,571 per acre. So you compare the $20,000 an acre or $8,571 an acre to the $69,184 an acre, and that's where the town would have to make that decision. So that is, I believe that's the last slide. I'm available for questions. Town council is available for questions. Assistant city manager and CFO is here for questions. I just want to make it clear again, the decision before the board here this evening is to look at the three options that are available to it. We can't make an analysis or really a decision on a 40B project yet because there is not one before us. We have not been presented with one. The developer is likely or probably going to wait and see what the town decides to do and whether the town is interested in working under an LIP or whether it would be a 40B. And the last thing that I would mention is in any case, because the question's been asked by a number of people, in any case, a developer could come into any land in town and do a 40B project. That is allowed. So this is our first experience with it now. It doesn't mean it won't happen in the future based on what happens with this project. It could still happen. Of the two, again, the 40B is what we call the hostile or non-friendly, where the town has no say, or an LIP is where it's a friendly, negotiable type development. So those are the options before you. Thank you.
Thank you. Attorney Hennigan, did you have anything you want to add regarding the legal process?
Madam Chairman, the only thing I would add is, and the town manager's laid out the process very, very well. The only thing I would add, just in case the board is interested, is the statute does require certain points and certain elements to be in the notice of intent that was received by the town, and we've gone through that, and all those statutory requirements of the notice of intent have been met. So I would determine that it's a sufficient notice of intent that has been given to the town.
Thank you. Do board members want to add questions or comments? Do we wish to allow the residents to speak first and then have comments? What does the board prefer?
You let the residents speak first.
If that's a consensus, when you come up, I'm going to ask you to state your name and spell your last name for the record and give your address, please. Okay? And if there's a show of hands, the woman in the first row here, if you could go up to the microphone.
Hi, my name is Linda Rydberg, and I live at 121 Southall Road. My property abuts the agricultural land where they want to build the multiple units. And it's beautiful land. I mean, there's deer and turkey and all kinds of wild animals. And of course, I've enjoyed it these many years, and I'd like to continue, obviously, but if that's not going to happen, my concern is that the newspaper article said that taxes would be raised on the people around that area, or I don't know if it means all of Auburn, but I already feel like I'm overpaying in my taxes, so I would hope that that wouldn't happen. And then the other thing is that I'm afraid the value of my 4 acres is going to go down considerably with affordable housing in front of me. And I'm sure I have other points, but I'm getting...
With this crowd, I'm guessing that we'll probably hear all of the concerns tonight.
Yeah.
But I'm going to take a list of the questions, and I'll give either the CFO or the town manager an opportunity to respond.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Is there someone else who wanted to speak? Please.
My name's Kevin Maher. I live at 4 Stonebridge Drive. You've probably seen some of my circulars. Maher spelled M-A-H-E-R. For the sake of full disclosure, I'd just like to say I abut the parcel. I also own a building company in Auburn, Emerson Homes, and my partner and I did meet with Mr. Post on a couple of occasions and looked at the property. We found it too costly to develop, and we had some concerns about acquisition cost and the long term that it would take to do something to liquidate all the assets of the project. About October 1, I heard that Scott was buying the property, Scott Sundin from Holden. Went home and told my wife, I said, we really lucked out. We got a good developer coming to Auburn. He has an outstanding reputation. There's nothing wrong with him as a builder. My concern broke away from that when I heard on October 14th that we were talking 200 plus apartments potentially down in the area. I do disagree to a certain degree with the town manager on her financial assessments. For example, do we have to build roads to liquidate the house lots? Are we required to do that? For example, many developers buy what they call raw approved lots. In this case, I think it's approximately 32. Many developers would consider paying somewhere in the range of $35,000 to $40,000 for the raw land with the permits in place. That would generate somewhere in the range of $1.2 to $1.4 million. That could be offsetted against the purchase price. So what we now have is a project at 2.8 that just went to 1.413. And that's a little different take on it. And the other benefit of that, you will get some of those revenues from developments, sewer and all that. But what you'll get is a reduced project with less impact on the town. So I think that's a consideration for this board to take as they go forward. The one thing I did not hear was traffic. I think to give this project an honest review, you've got to get in your car, drive down to Greenwood Street, drive up South Old Road. Then you ought to drive down Curtis Street. I think the way this project is set up, where the Post property ends on Southwood Road going to Worcester, there's 1,200 feet of land on that roadway before you hit the Worcester line. There's an additional 1,400 feet of roadway to Greenwood Street. I haven't heard anybody address how the deficiencies in that roadway will be repaired. You may say that the developer will work with you, but I've never seen a developer go off and approve 1,800 feet of road to make it more accessible. What I think is going to happen here in reality, and you can look at it, the people coming from the Mass Pike side, they're going to get on Greenwood Street, and they're going to go down by Helen's Bakery and take Spofford, and go up through the village, the housing project down there, and dump on Upland Street. Or they're just going to continue up Greenwood Street to Upland Street, and go up Upland Street past Old Farm, Meadowbrook, Saybrook, and take a left on Curtis. That's where the traffic's going to flow, because the other access points aren't going to be acceptable. If you were to drive on Southfield Road today, I think part of it's private, the Worcester section, if you go over 5 miles an hour, you're going to lose your transmission. So let's have an honest look at traffic here. And the second point is, drive down Curtis Street. Now, I know it's going to be repaved next year, but is that a road that you want to put that sort of volume on for traffic? I think there's a real public safety issue here, because I don't think that road can support that traffic. I drive down the street every day, and there are people on that street constantly. If you go up Packagug Hill, there's people all over the place walking, including Curtis Street. And another interesting factor was, when they put in the park up there, they didn't want any traffic going on Curtis Street because it couldn't feed off. I hope you remember all that when they were putting the Pappas Park up there. They wanted to keep the traffic off Curtis. They only put the emergency exit there because they felt the road did not have the capacity for that. But now we want to talk about 225 housing units. I have no problem with the town acting as a developer. But, you know, it's not that complex. Let's think about Pappas Park. Let's think where that came from. I actually opposed that land purchase from the town many years ago, and I'm really glad they bought it. The town bought that and sold off assets. I'm not advocating the town of Auburn go in and build roads and sell off single house lots. What I'm advocating is the town put out an RFP to liquidate the 32 lots in one package and let the developer put a road in. That's the reasonable way of doing it, and that's the smart way, and it's probably the progressive way. We do not want to be building streets and selling off house lots. I totally agree with the town manager on that one. We don't have the capabilities to do that, nor should you. And the other thing, if we do a one-time purchase that has a capital outlay of somewhere from $1 million to $2 million, that's done. Those other costs, the schools, will disappear. I don't know if I agree with some of the capacity of traffic with some units, two-bedroom units, are only going to have one car. Most couples today have two. You know, you've got to really look at this. I mean, those are studies. I think we need to spend more time on it. And that's where I have a problem with this board. And I'd like to hand out something to the board.
You can give it to Sharon to pass to the board.
Sure. It should be enough for every one of you.
Mr. Maher, how much longer do you expect to go? We have 2 full rooms.
3 minutes at the most.
Okay, thank you, because I was meant to limit people to 3
Okay.
minutes, but I'll let you finish up because we do have 2 rooms of people who are going to speak.
I'll leave the room. I'll let somebody else make comment. I handed out to you from, thank you, Mount Grace Land Conservation Trust. And the heading of this is Conservation and Land Use Planning under Massachusetts Chapter 61. Prime of cities, towns, and conservation organizations. I have given you 2 pages of that plus the cover. Now, this is very important. I'm a citizen of Auburn. I've lived here all my life. I think the Board of Selectmen let some people down in this town. The responsibility for Chapter 61A land falls with the board. You can lean on the professional management team, but it's your responsibility. These are recommended guidelines that towns use. I know one town that did. Day 1 through 7, the very first thing the selectmen should do is appoint a project manager and a study committee. Study committee made up of planning board, conservation, zoning, town officials, professional staff, and assign them the task to look at this. That's what you should do, which I don't think has been really done. And what should you do with this study committee? You should look at roadway capacity. It's all detailed in here. It's very easy read. Road capacity, schools, police, fire, traffic flows, zoning applications, water and sewer capacities, and God forbid, talk to the abutters. Okay? This whole thing has sat so low since October 12th. Under the radar, there's a lot of people that feel very uncomfortable about this. And it's like it's all been just quietly done. So what I'd recommend you do, and I don't think you have done, is your due diligence as a board. This is a recommended procedure. It's not a requirement. Okay? But a good procedure that's been used and developed over the years. But there is an option for you here to do that work and do the due diligence. Nobody's told you that you can request from the homeowner, from the landowner, a 120-day extension. That's allowed under Chapter 61. He doesn't have to give it. It's voluntary. I don't know if the developer's here. He may want the town to have a good solid look at this before he comes in here and starts doing a hostile 40B. I think what you need to do is reach out to the landowner and convince the developer also not to interfere with that reach out, and request that the Post family give a 120-day extension, which you're allowed to do. This property held by the Post family has been that family has been in this town 3, 4, 5 generations. This is their legacy. This is their last major holding. I think they may consider that. I don't know that, but I think that's something this board should do. And this board should do the due diligence, because the burden does not lie with the town manager. It lies with the board, who is supposed to be the responsible party for this project. So I hope you do that. If you don't, I think setting a town meeting day, the busiest travel week of the year, is not in the best interest of the town. Maybe consider the first week in December. You do have time, but to set a town meeting on Thanksgiving week, I don't think is the best interest of the town also. So I hope you consider those things. And if you have any questions, I'd gladly answer them. I know you're busy, Madam Chairperson, but that's all I have to say.
Thank you so much.
Okay?
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wants? Is there anyone else who wants to speak in this room? Please come up to the microphone.
Good evening. My name is Stephen Holmes, Stephen with a PH, Holmes, Holmes. I live at 157 Packagug Street in Auburn, beautiful area. My fiance has been there 30 years. I'm right at the corner of Packagug and Upland, and in my 14 years since I've been in town, the traffic on Packagug alone has become a racetrack, and it's probably doubled or tripled since I've been there. It's a very common area for people to walk, jog. Holy Cross goes by all the time. People walk their dogs. And just in the last 5 to 10 years that I've actively walked the streets, I have a dog now, that it's become dangerous. Packagug is a dangerous street right now. It's turning into Southbridge Street. And forget about Curtis Street. Curtis Street is a small country road, so the impact of what we're talking about tonight is, I agree with Mr. Maha, if I say his name right, there's so much more to consider, and no one's even mentioned the quality of life that we all are going to have a change about in that area. It's not going to be 1 or 2 or 10 or 50 houses. It's going to be hundreds of people are going to have an impact. Their quality of life is going to decrease. Our property values absolutely will decrease. And it doesn't seem like there's enough studies of intangible things, not just numbers, but isn't there other options outside of, buying or not buying or whatever? So I would just like the board to, reach out to the town, get more feedback from all the residents, and before we can make a educated decision. Thanks.
Thank you. There's anyone else who hasn't spoken? Please come up to the microphone.
Let me just check.
Good evening. Kurt Shallow, 6 Stonebridge Road, last name Shallow. To be candid, I'm playing a lot of catch-up here because I haven't heard anything about this until Mr. Maher sent a letter out to me to let me know it was available. So I'm disappointed in that. I'm stunned if half of what Kevin says is accurate, that we don't know that already. I'm stunned if a 120-day extension is available, if that's a fact, and that wasn't brought up before. Stunned. But I have questions that I'd like to ask, if I could. And again, I'm playing catch-up, so I beg your indulgence a little bit. Can I scan this back? Am I allowed to do that? Or actually, I can just ask the question. And again, trying to assimilate dozens of numbers that I'm seeing for the very first time that are admittedly estimates or guesstimates as it relates to revenue, income to the town. But if I remember one way back, you had the 25 single-family homes at $400,000 apiece. Does that sound accurate? I can look it up if you want me to go back. Yeah. I think anybody here who could find a home in Auburn for $400,000 be pretty happy if you're using that for tax purposes. I mean, just sitting here just now, I went on Trulia, and Trulia says the average home is $272,000. Now, I didn't want to stack the deck, but I went to Zillow. You can do it. I have it right here on my phone. Zillow says the average price is $213,000. I don't know where in the world you found $400,000. I don't know. Holden. The example was Holden. And we talked about the impact of the fire. We talked about the impact of the police. impact, the revenue to Holden, all a benefit, all sounded great. Not one item about the value of the homes in Holden since then. Not one. I could do it here on Truly for you in Zillow. Take me 30 seconds. This was 60 days worth. I can't believe it. I'll give you the bottom line. The Holden values have gone down. What people say here, and the biggest fear everyone in this room has, and I'll admit it, I don't want anything to do with 190 apartments. Anything. Because the price of my property will go down. Period. And I don't want that. And by the way, that means your tax base ultimately goes down too. That's the net impact. When we looked at the costs, I think what we said was, again, trying to catch all this because it's the very first time I've seen it. I don't know if other people have seen it, but I haven't. I think we said the 25 single-family homes would be 9 children. And I think overall we said about 50 children, which I don't know how the math works there. I guess you can find. Best thing about studies is I can find one to say whatever I want. Whatever I want. Any study you want, any number you want, I can find you a study. I'm not indicting your study. I'm just saying you're right. You're totally right. It's 100% guesstimate, and we shouldn't take this as anything other than a guess in terms of revenue to the town or benefit to the town. But my question is this. If there's 50 children, I didn't see anything in here about school busing costs. Are we assuming they're walking? Are they just part of the bus route? There's no additional busing costs, no additional drivers? I'm just curious if that was in there because I didn't see it. Again, couldn't keep up with all the numbers, but I'm guessing you guys looked into that, said there's no buses needed, no additional drivers needed for those 52 children. That's just my guess because I haven't seen it. The traffic issues, I got to tell you, what Kevin said, what Mr. Maher said about driving, and we talked about the plowing costs, right? Does everyone understand how Curtis Street and South Hold Road are plowed? Has anyone ever gone down there when it's been plowed? Okay? These are not gigantic DPW trucks that plow. Okay? These are lease deals. These are contract deals that get plowed. So if that's the cost, then you're finding another guy in an F-150 to plow all those roads. You're not finding someone from the town to plow those roads. And anyone who lived through the storm a couple of years ago knows on Curtis Street, you had to wait your turn to get down the street. If you were coming down and someone else was coming up, you had to back up. That was it. That was the plowing we're talking about. So again, I'm not here to tell you the numbers are wrong or the numbers are right. I'm here to tell you you didn't do all your homework. You didn't do all your homework. And you owe it to me as a taxpayer, and you owe it to these people as taxpayers to do your homework. And when you put a bunch of numbers up and then tell people it's a guesstimate, don't put the numbers up if it's a guesstimate. Say, I don't know. Just say, I don't know. Okay? The last thing I'd say is, if I remember, if I went back to the beginning, this started in August. In August. And the first meeting, if I read it correctly, was October. All right? At least, I mean, I don't know if I'm in a butter, but I know I back up to South Hole Road. And the fact that I didn't get anything from the town or anything published that I saw that said we could have that conversation, and then it looks like on December 10th, we're held hostage, we have to make a decision. I'm stunned with an item this big, this is the process. I don't know whether it, as Kevin said, it went under the radar or was kept a low profile, but I can tell you from August to October, I didn't see anything except one meeting between town firms or town offices to talk about it. I know I wasn't in a room to talk about it, and if I had known this thing was going on, I'd have been here in a minute. All I'm asking you to do is do your homework, do the right thing. I don't want it. I don't want the 190 apartments. I'm not afraid to say it. My value will go down. I'm asking you to do what you can to avoid that from happening for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else who wanted to speak? Mr. Moss, and then Mr. Weaver. Mr. Moss.
I'm Kevin Moss, 1 Betty Street, MOSS, just like Pete. I'm real concerned about 194 units at the bottom of the hill, excuse me. Curtis Street's a very narrow road. When they were putting in that, the fields up on top of the hill, those trucks couldn't even swing into the driveway. That driveway was supposed to be, I think, 21 feet, and they ended up widening it by another 6 or 7 feet because the trucks couldn't make the swing. And then they put so much gravel in there that it was easier just to widen the road. Now, there's a gate across there, I understand, but it's still a very small country road. It's hard enough in the wintertime for me to get out of my street at Betty Street, just to go up Curtis Street, if it's not plowed. There's two ways to get down through Worcester. You go down Upland Street, which you wind down at the bottom of the hill, and you come up around there. I'm not sure of the street that's up on the left-hand side, but there's new development up there. That's getting very treacherous when you make that turn. If it's snowing out anymore, I don't go that way because I'm afraid of making the turn. It's just I've been forced off that road enough times. When you go down Curtis Street at the bottom, you got a 90-degree turn over a cliff. I really have my questions on your school buses and everything else going down there. There's just not that room there to make Curtis Street an access for this project, especially for 190 units. That's got to be really looked at. I can see doing single-family homes down there and something different, but there's only so much that's going to take down there. And that's all I'd say.
Thank you. Mr. Weaver?
Members of the board, fellow residents of Auburn, my name's John Weaver. I'm a member of the planning board in town, also vice president of real estate at Mass Development. Here today just as a fellow resident, and there's a few things that I just wanted to talk quickly about. The first one is process, and this is very important. The fact that the residents have the opportunity to talk about a project, understand what's going on in town, and voice this. I think the other thing that's important to remember is that a lot of these project-related impacts are going to be discussed through the process. If we go through the friendly 40B process, the town has an opportunity to be interactive on that conversation and to try to resolve some of these issues. Where the town is right now as far as affordable housing goes, it's very likely that a unfriendly 40B project could come in which case the town has very little recourse to protect the residents in that type of case. Here I think we have a good developer by seemingly all indications, somebody who's willing to work with the town, who's done projects in this market and done them effectively and done them with the cooperation of the town both before and after the project was completed, which I think is important. And I don't think we should overlook that. The other thing I think is important to keep in mind here is we're talking about the town, the taxpayers, paying $2.85 million, which is a lot of money, to purchase a piece of property in order to protect it from what may or may not occur. And that is instead of receiving potential tax revenues, which we could be receiving over the long term of this project, and really encouraging future development within the town, all of which I think are, again, important. Third thing I kind of wanted to address quickly is affordable housing and what it is and kind of what it isn't. In the town of Auburn, a family of four making less than $63,900 is eligible for affordable housing. So a family with two people making $30,000 is who we're talking about here. We're not talking about very low-income housing. We're not talking about some of the other subsidized or Section 8 housing that you see in Worcester and other areas. Examples of affordable housing in Worcester, recent examples, the Vogue Lofts project, which is on the end of Salisbury Street and Grove Street in Worcester. Beautifully done building, shows you what the type of product that can be created with affordable housing. It's not, I think the image that a lot of people have in their mind. So I guess in summary, I would just say I want the town to really be thoughtful about this. I don't know that the best solution is for the taxpayers to put up $2.85 million, still be susceptible for another 40B, unfriendly, hostile type of development in which the town would have very little say over the development. And in addition, we have an opportunity here to have a good developer, to try to work with them, to try to make a successful project, and also to go through the kind of public process in which residents will have an impact and will have a voice to guide that project and all the concerns you guys have raised tonight. So hope you keep an open mind to that. Thank you.
Thank you. In the back row.
Mark Seliger, 80 Curtis Street, Seliger. Not as eloquent as some of the other folks, and I do have a New York accent, but I moved up here about 30 years ago. I moved to Auburn for a very particular reason. I used to live in those condos across the street from Upland Gardens, and then back at around 88, they wanted to put the same type of thing back there. And who was standing next to me fighting it but the town of Auburn? Why? Because they said the traffic couldn't take it, all the infrastructure couldn't take it, everything that you're hearing now, right down Upland Street, up to Packagug. So now we're talking about the same thing, but it's for the town of Auburn. And I'm hearing, we're a town. Maybe they'll retract what we've been talking about, okay, and what we fought, and we were down at the Worcester City Hall, fighting it, and that was canceled, and they didn't put in the rental housing, put in small houses, scaled it down quite a bit, for that. So when I went looking for a house to move out of those condos, and I bought down to the end of Curtis Street, okay, had this argument a lot of times what the land behind my house was. I had a note from the town that was conservation land, and that turned to be the case. But we knew it was farmland, and there was a nice chain at the end of the road, and the quality of life was pretty good. And for 20 years, I've been fighting that, and it seems like every development, everything that's happening in town is happening on Packagug Hill. Okay, between the Pappas, and was the high school was going to go there before. Now we want to put this development in a place where it really should not be, or at least accessible from, I like the term country road, so I'll use the term country road. Okay, South Old Street is abysmal. I don't know why the town actually repaired it this week, or last Friday, because it is a private way, and the town did fix it, so I won't get into that, but that doesn't go right by anything. My end of the road is private. Okay, I don't get much say into that either, because of that. But it is constantly fighting and fighting about what goes on top of Packagug Hill, that the infrastructure is just not there for it. And what I haven't heard, if this is a 4DB, whatever, why doesn't we go in the state and access Route 20?
Right, that's what I wanted to say.
Okay, why does it have to keep on going onto Packagug Hill with all the traffic and all the problems? Okay, and weekends don't go by when the cops are coming down the street and there's some car parked someplace on that. So, I think we're very narrow-minded, and what we're talking about here is about going South Old Street, Curtis Street, whereas it's a little bridge over the runoff, and you need a state permit to a Route 20. Okay, which I think would ease a lot of the Auburn residents. It's still property values are going to go down, but we're not going to get that traffic. Okay, it's about 14 to 16 feet wide in front of my house. Cars have launched off the edge. Okay, they've gone during the winter. The town fire truck can't get back up the hill during the winter. Okay, I've used bags of sand to try to get them up when they come down my street. Okay, it's not the appropriate way to get to and from a large development. If you go down the other side of South Old Street, it's even worse. Okay, so the whole scope of this just seems absolutely wrong. The other two things, one, I don't see a plan for this town. Okay, we have projects popping up everywhere. I don't see, what is the big plan? Okay, there's a lot of open space on the other side of town, okay, things, but I don't see a unified growth plan, development plan, or anything, and who's managing that? Okay, I may be naive or not seeing it, but I think if we had something along those lines, we'd know where this town is going, instead of if a developer comes on in and decides, I want to do this, and also we're running around trying to figure out how do we compensate for that. Okay? And the last thing I do want to make a comment that we heard before about the timing of this. Every project that I've had to deal with on the street, with the post land mostly, I'm always behind the 8 ball. I don't know what's going on, I'm always late. We had a town engineer that used to squeal to me when something was going on with the post land. Okay, that town engineer is no longer here. Okay, literally, because there would be something happening, we'll get a phone call and say, come on down, because they're down there talking about the land again. Okay, that's not how we should do business. August 22nd should have been brought up here, maybe not in detail, but this is what was going on, and allow the people of the town of Auburn to understand that this was happening, instead of waiting until now to give us the opportunity. So, don't really appreciate always the pressure that it puts everybody on, because we eat the time. So, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Tatro was next, and then Mr. Proudy.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. Robert Tatro, T-A-T-R-O, 4 Ridgewood Drive. And in the interest of full disclosure, I am on the Zoning Board of Appeals. I'm the current chair. I am not speaking on behalf of my board this evening. Please understand that. I'm only here as a citizen. But I just have a couple of questions, really, and a comment. Are there any other 40B potential projects happening in town right now? Have we been approached by any other builders with regard to a 40B project?
We're taking a list of notes for
Okay.
questions. We're going to
Because
address
I've heard
everything
a
at the
few
end.
people mention it tonight that we could have this hostile situation go on, and it just seems like a fear tactic to me. Because if we purchase this land, however means we decide to dispose of it or maintain it for green space, then that eliminates that issue. So I'm also going to address the sort of 600-pound gorilla in the room here. I retired from the sheriff's office after 23 years, and I went into the National Institute of Justice's website. It talks about criminal statistics. And regardless of the income level regarding apartment complexes, crime rates rise. And I can tell you, after 23 years of working in the housing units at the sheriff's office, from Fitchburg to Worcester to Southbridge, concentration of people, regardless of the income level, creates a rise in crime. We just had a shooting that took place over the Worcester line 3 weeks ago or so. A 19-year-old gang member from Worcester was shot and killed in Upland Gardens, which will be in very close proximity to this development. People that do that look for opportunities. Those opportunities are going to arise because they're going to have 190 people or 190 families moving into these apartments that are going to be seen as opportunity. So that's one of the concerns I have in terms of that. And you can more than welcome to go on the National Institute of Justice website yourself. You can go research all these papers that a lot of other people that are much smarter than me present, and it's looked upon at the national level as being fact. So that's one of the things I concern myself with. Me, ultimately, I'd love to see it as preservation of green space. We have eaten up a lot of green space in this town for other projects, and we're only going to have so much of it left before we run out. I know that the townsfolk would probably not get behind that entire project, but that's just my personal opinion. I think the easiest opportunity here, what Ms. Jacobson laid out so eloquently, was that the possibility of purchasing the land and then selling off a certain number of lots in order to recoup the cost. If we hire an additional police officer at, I think it was $81,000 a year with a recommendation of a master's degree, that's going to be forever. That's not going to be just for the next 10 years or 15 years or whatever it might be. That's going to be a burden on the retirement system, all the things that go along with that. The part-time officers also. I saw up there that they said no impact to fire. Well, that might be true, but if there is an awful fire up there someday, there could be an incredible impact on the fire department. So that's an unknown that we have to take into consideration also. The impact on the town sewer system, all those different things. I think overall, I'll wrap it up by saying that, to me, the initial purchase of this land and the financing of it and the proper management in our hands is going to benefit our community much better than selling it to a developer, let them decide what's going to happen. What happens if he can't rent out 190 apartments? Does he have the option of now suddenly saying, well, we have to decrease the rent because we can't get those people in here? Oh, well, that's not going to work. We're going to have to decrease the property value on the homes. So they are taking a big gamble. I recognize that. But they're also, I think, a projected of a $22 million profit somewhere around there. So this developer's going to come in, develop this entire piece of property, take all the profits, and leave us with all the costs in the long run. So with that being said, eat the cost of the land now, keep it for green space, or manage it ourselves, and at least have a choice of our impact and how it's going to happen to us in the future as a community. So the one thing I'd like to leave you with is this, that I always like to have a quote at the end of things. Progress is not necessarily progressive in certain circumstances, and I think this is one of those circumstances where progress is not necessarily progressive. So thank you very much.
Mr. Prouty was next, and then Mrs. Holstrom, then Mr. Platukas.
Ron Prouty, P-R-O-U-T-Y, 11 Marion Ave. I don't live near the project. But I did spend combined 50-some years on the Planning Board and the Conservation Commission. And this plan is not good planning, and it's not good conservation. Conservation and planning boards have, over the past years, had long-range plans, had open space plans. Those are in somebody's drawer gathering dust, while the Board of Selectmen deals with today's problems or yesterday's problems. think the best word that I've heard tonight, Bob just said, and it's the word forever. The decisions you make now deal with forever. I don't have forever. You don't have forever. But the decisions that you make are going to affect forever. Think of where we would be today if we hadn't taken the gamble on Packagug Acres. And yet, at that time, there were cries from town officials of bankrupt the town, financial ruin if we do this. Well, the town has managed to work it out, and we're a heck of a lot better today because we do have Packagug Acres. The opportunities for 40B taking dwindle down as farmland has dwindled in the town. And perhaps to prevent other surprises like this, we ought to look more closely at that land. We ought to look at our long-range plans for open space, because there isn't any more open space being made. Now, that's a cliche, but it's as true as it can be. There won't be any more open land next to Packagug Golf Course, which sometime in the future, the town may take over and make a success out of it, we hope. But they would certainly have a better opportunity if they had 50 acres of space abutting it. This project, compared with the end of Salisbury Street, is ridiculous. We don't live in a community that's surrounded by the Great Wall of China that walls everything else out. And all you have to do is look at Greenwood Street and the development along Greenwood Street and see what we're plunking down right next to it. I'm afraid of what's going to happen to the town in the future because, and I'm going to talk right to the Board of Selectmen, I don't think you care what happens in the future. I think you might care what happens in the next election or what happens on TV next week, but I don't see any signs of future. You can't let this burden rest with hired guns from out of town. Yes, they do a great job, but they are not caring for forever for Auburn. And I hope you do. I hope you don't listen to the tales of disaster that will befall us. Because if we buy this land, we will come up with the money that's needed, and we'll have something that will be an asset forever. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Kim Holstrom, Holstrom, 273 Central Street. I am also not an abutter to this property. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the town is in the position to even have the option of purchasing this property because the owners of the property took a tax exemption over the years that allows the town the right of first refusal. If they had paid regular taxes, they could have sold it to this developer and the town would have no option to purchase it. I agree with Mr. Prouty that there isn't a whole lot of open space. I think there's two things we have to consider. If the town wants to purchase this property and sell off a portion of it like we did with Packagug Acres, now we got 120 acres right off of Packagug Street for $1.1 million as opposed to close to $3 million for less than half that amount. we need to know what the cost to the taxpayer, every taxpayer, not just the taxpayers on Curtis Street and Packagug Street and South Hole Road, but every taxpayer is, if we were to do this. And I think we need to go to the taxpayers and let them vote on it. I think this is too important a question for any 5 people in Auburn to make, or even the 120 town meeting members. I think if the town were to seriously consider spending close to $3 million purchasing this property for open space, which I'm not saying it's a good idea or a bad idea. I want to know how much it's going to cost me every year in increased taxes to borrow that kind of money and do a Proposition 2.5 override to do it, because your taxes are going to go up. And I know there are people who are going to say, oh, we have all sorts of excess levy capacity. Yeah, we do, but it still makes your taxes go up. If the town's spending $3 million, your taxes and my taxes are going up to pay for that $3 million. I want to know what that cost is. And I would encourage the board to send it to the voters and let the voters decide. Shall the town of Auburn vote to purchase 50 acres of land on whatever for $2.865 million? And let the voters decide. If that requires us to ask for an extension, so be it. But it should be decided by the entire town, not a room of 100 people or 5 people or 120 town meeting members.
Thank you. Mr. Patoukas?
Bob Patoukas, 231 Millbury Street. I'm not an abutter to the project either, and I'm chairman of the Wind Turbine and Alternative Energy Committee, and I'm not speaking for the committee. I am a town meeting member, and I'd be happy to vote to purchase this land as open space, as an investment. I can remember years ago talking to a great select board member who complained often about not having enough space, Laurie Nordgren. We had long conversations about this, and we're both concerned with animals and the way they move through our town and the need for open space. We've never addressed it, really, and we need to. Water's another issue. I'm not going to make this proposal without a solution. That's been my policy since I've spoken on the citizens' comments. I will not criticize unless I have a solution. My suggestion is we do something similar to pay for this project and earn extra money that Sterling Municipal Light has done. And they took open farmland and they built many megawatts of electricity generating power. I would suggest that we could put solar collectors there and not bother anyone, not bother the neighbors, and come in with income far greater than this $3 million over a period of years. One call to Sterling Light would partially answer this, because that project is already built. If we called them tomorrow, maybe we could find out how many kilowatts they're generating. We've all heard about the raises in electricity. It sounds like almost 18 cents per kilowatt. That's outrageous. But that's my suggestion, is that we think about putting it's about 5 or 6 acres of cleared land, and this land's already cleared. About, if I understand it correctly, it's about 25 acres of land that's being mowed. You don't have to do anything to that. That's ready to go. You don't have to knock any trees down. It's ready to go. So please call Sterling Municipal Light. Let's find out how much money they're making and see if it's possible for the town to pay for this project from the income. It might be enough to pay for what we have to pay for the loan. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Patsoukas. Is there anyone else who wants to speak? Mr. Page?
Good evening, Wayne Page, PAGE, 90 Old Common Road. I do not know anything about this project. I kind of learned this on a whim like everybody else has. I first seen it in the paper, and I understand how these people feel. I am not a resident of that area at all. I'm way on the other side of town. But I would have to agree with Kim Holstrom, what she said about going from the selectmen to town meeting and to the voters. Let the voters decide, but in that process, I like to see it extended for the extra 120 days if that's possible. And I would like to get the residents and the people that live in that area get a lot more information that they have received so far. We need more, I think they need more time. We need more time as taxpayers to see what we can do and what we can't do, and then finally let the voters decide, but we need to get more information to the people. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Page. Is there anyone? Mr. Maher?
My name's Stephen Maher. I live at 170 Oxford Street. We're hearing a lot here tonight about the problems if we do buy the land and develop it, and if Mr. Sundin buys the land and development. I think what we should do is buy the land, put it out to a vote for a Proposition 2.5 debt exclusion, and have conservation restrictions in the vote, and just preserve it as open space. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wants to speak? Mr. Hammond?
Hi, Nicholas Hammond, 23 Rock Ave. I was on the Board of Selectmen at one point, and I can tell you this, that we can make studies look how we want to support our position, and we can also find the studies that don't support our position and ignore them. I missed the beginning part of it, but I am well aware of what can and can't be done behind the scenes. Furthermore, that slide is wrong because it says cost is open space. I never thought in my life that I'd see open space as a cost and not an investment. Open space is a big investment. $2.865 million is not a lot of money for forever, because that's what it is, it's forever. I watched town meeting last week. I saw the school system transfer $1 million amongst accounts to fix roofs and do other things. I fully support the transfers, but it's just an example of where there is money, okay? I believe stabilization has over $2 million. I believe there's excess levy in the millions. We're talking about overrides and this and that. We don't need overrides. We need a Board of Selectmen to lead. We need the Board of Selectmen to look at town management and tell them to find the money, to look. Stop buying $60,000 vehicles, stop buying flat screen TVs that are on in the other room, and find the money. Find the money. That's leadership. I think the board has abdicated a lot of their authority over to the town manager, and it seems like town management is now telling the Board of Selectmen what they're going to do, and that's not how this is supposed to work. This is an investment in open space. The choice for the Board of Selectmen is to destroy Packagug Hill or not. The cost, as you put it, is $3 million. The investment to save Packagug Hill is $3 million. Invest in Packagug Hill. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wants to speak? And everyone else in the other room, which you'll hear in a minute. If there's anyone else in the other room who wants to speak, now's the time. Seeing none, I'll now open it up to board comments or questions.
I'd like to hear from other board members before I speak.
Mr. Simonian has raised his hand.
I'm sorry?
Mr. Simonian.
Oh, I have some comments that I wrote down as everyone was speaking, which would largely echo a lot of what was said here. And I'm going to be perfectly blunt because that's pretty much been my way. A couple of years ago, I brought up the idea of creating a land trust. And I mentioned Grafton as an example, and I don't know how many of you are aware, but this is not an indictment of anyone here in Auburn, past boards, or people who have served, because I appreciate and respect everyone who served in any capacity. But I do feel, same as a lot of you, that we've done a very poor job of managing our open space, preserving it. Grafton is a town with a land trust that has done a phenomenal job in doing that. If this board had at least entertained the thought of creating a land trust, which I believe, if I'm not wrong, any money that we put into that trust would have been matched by the state dollar for dollar, we would have a sum of money 2 years later that would be put towards the purchase of this property. I just want to go through some of the comments that I wrote down. Initially, my thought was, same as what I heard, let's just purchase the land, for the reasons that I just stated. But at the same time, if what Mr. Maher said is true, and I haven't gotten that far in my research, but if we can get an extension, I think that's point number one. I don't think that we should be conducting business at a town meeting that takes place during the holidays. 120-day extension, would, if it's available, would certainly put us past the holiday point where people are available. People would be more attached and invested in being able to attend meetings or even a special town meeting. During the presentation, the town manager said several times, one word that I just kept hearing over and over and over again: unknown, unknown, unknown. Now, at the last meeting, when Mr. Sundin and I believe his attorney or representative were here speaking, I specifically asked about the numbers. And though he didn't commit to anything and nothing was carved in stone, he did mention some percentages and number of units, which again was around 200. I believe that the town should control the development, not leave it up to someone else. It's very clear to all of us that if we do, as a board, abdicate our authority to someone else, that is not what any of you elected us to do. So I'm in favor of the town purchasing the land. I'm in favor of us deciding what happens in controlling the growth or development of that land. Regarding the comments on the traffic up on Curtis Street, spot on. I've been up there for ball games. I've coached softball for several years, and I've seen it with my own eyes, vehicles parked on residents' lawn. I've gotten the phone calls from people up there, people parked in the lawn. And I've always told them to speak to the Auburn Police. There's really nothing I can do. But why should they have to tolerate it? I don't think that, as several people said, Curtis Street can handle the added traffic. So that would certainly be something we would have to look into. And again, if we controlled the growth, that would hopefully be part of a plan. One of the things that bothers me somewhat, over the past couple of years, whenever folks have come up here and advocated for spending money, one of the things that's been touted over and over and over again is our great bond position and how much money we're going to save against any money that we borrow. Not once was that mentioned here tonight. If it's a point for other places where we want to make purchases, why wasn't it a point that was brought up tonight? I just have a couple more. I do believe that it's something the town should decide, and that's why I would be happy to send it to town meeting, send it to the voters. And again, that's not me abdicating my leadership. That's me feeling that it is something that affects all of us. It affects the people who live there, absolutely, but it does affect all of us. Sure, there's a cost associated. I agree with one of the comments that Mr. Hammond made. It's an investment. We've put money towards other things. Why not this? Why would we lose an open space like this? Mr. Blaze was here, former selectman, at our last meeting. He talked about Pappas Park. And I think it might have been Mr. Prouty who mentioned it. If we had not purchased that open space back then, there's a good chance that we'd still be looking for a place to build that park. It is space that the town can use. Mr. Platukis has a valid idea. It's been mentioned over and over and over again over the last couple of years, the possibility of building a solar farm somewhere in Auburn. If we have an opportunity to put one there, why not do it? All of these points are well made. I do believe that the town should purchase the land. That's my opinion. That's what I'd be supporting. Thank you.
Next.
I'm sorry, do you want?
Anyone want to go next?
I wanted to hear from other members before I spoke, so I don't know if anybody else has something to say, but...
Well, go ahead, Mrs. Brotherton.
It certainly has been an eye-opener of a meeting, and it's great to see so many residents so involved. I too am a lifelong member. I've been here 55 years and went through the school system. What a position it puts so many people in with the economy. We want to bring things in to help us lower our taxes, and we want to bring in jobs for people and do so many things, and yet it hurts and disrupts so many other positive things. And how to balance this? What do we do? What do we do? We are 5 members that have committed to talk to our residents, hear them, listen to their concerns, and try to help them with their concerns. I firmly believe that this is too vast and too important of a project that we need to go to the voters for this. And I truly, if I can say, I truly believe that that space, as much as though it would be revenue, it's also beautiful space, and you can't build more land. Thank you.
I'm going to save my comments, so if you wish to go, Mr. Carpenter, you're...
Sure. Some of the comments tonight, some of the questions, I want to echo Mrs. Brotherton's comments. It is great to see a room full of residents engaged and interested. I wish we could get you here every week, every other week, so that we could confront the problems of the town as a whole, because certainly we don't do that. And it does fall to elected and appointed officials to, in their best judgment, based on the advice of learned officials, to make decisions. So, having said that, I agree with what other members have said. And I have actually asked a lot of questions off camera, believe it or not, that Mr. Maher raised. So it isn't that we haven't been asking questions, it's just that we have to have a public process to talk amongst ourselves. We can only talk to the officials, the town manager, the CFO, and the various other officials individually because of the open meeting law. So it's not that this has not been an issue. It's not that we've been thinking of other things, leaves falling, going away for the weekend. We've been actually engaged in a lot of work that we have to chew gum and walk at the same time. So on behalf of myself, I do want to tell you that I've been asking all these questions, and certainly I haven't been thrilled with the answers. They're not easy answers, and I agree. We should go to the voters. We should go to town meeting, and one of the suggestions that I actually had penned down was December 3rd, because it's not a good idea to have anybody worried about Thanksgiving preparations or going to town meeting. So that would have been my suggestion. My other suggestion was to actually have another meeting so that we could get you back some answers, so that you were fully engaged. We do have time to do that. We are not that pressed for time that we cannot have a public process that you are included in, and we want your feedback. So I appreciate everything that's been said. I appreciate everybody turning out, and hopefully we'll have another meeting and we'll be able to give you some answers that will satisfy some of the questions tonight. So thank you very much.
I too would like to thank everybody for being here tonight. I haven't received any phone calls from anybody. I haven't talked to anybody about this. They haven't come to me. There's been, in passing, we've had conversations, but with the information that was provided to us tonight, there's a little bit more information out there. And again, it's estimates, guesstimates at best. We haven't heard anything back from the developer. But this has been an eye-opener. We have brought some people together tonight to hear their concerns, wanted to know what they were. And it would not affect me. My wife, Kim, got up and spoke. We live opposite side of town, but yes, it will affect all of us. But this isn't something that a 5-member board could decide on. It could even be a 3-member board. 3 people to decide the fate of the land that's up there. I believe we should go to the town meeting and then ultimately to the voters to let them decide, what do you want to do? There has been a lot of talk tonight about open space. Yes, there is some revenue coming from land development. And both of them have, well, there are points to be made. However, the points to be made shouldn't come from this board in total. It should come from you, the people who have been taking your time to come up here tonight to hear what we've done. Go to the town meeting. Let the town meeting decide. Have we got the money? Have we the ability to have that money and to spend it? And then go ultimately to the town and say yes or no. And we're residents of the town, as you are. We will make our decision also. So let's send it to the town meeting. Let's send it to the voters. And I thank you all for being here and bringing about some points that would not have been known otherwise. Thank you.
So I just want, again, I will thank all of you for being here as well, and those in the other room. You know, this board can take a vote tonight to waive our first right of refusal, which I don't believe anyone in this room wants us to do, and have the development go forward. We cannot exercise our first right of refusal until we have a funding authorization, which has to go to town meeting. To Mr. Hammond's point, if we were to use excess levy, yes, this board could take that vote. But I have said all along, if we use excess levy, my personal vote would be to have it go to the voters. I don't think that 5 people should be voting to spend $3 million without it going to the voters. I feel that so many of you in the room tonight, you know, presented your point with a belief that this board has already taken a position to not purchase the land. This was an informational hearing, and as you've heard from 4, and you'll now hear from me, I'm not in support of waiving our first right of refusal. I would like it to go to town meeting and possibly ultimately go to the voters. This isn't a decision that the 5 of us should make, especially waiving our first right of refusal. This was an informational hearing. Granted, you know, yes, there are a lot of unknowns, but could we get up here tonight and just say, we have no information for you? We had to present the best information we had, including what our options were to purchase the land, and the options that were attached to that, whether we keep it entirely for open space, look to sell off some of the lots to recoup some of our money. But I don't think that anyone on this board indicated that we were looking to just sell the land and not exercise our right. It's been a difficult process. We've looked at the purchase and sales agreement. We've gathered information, as Mr. Carpenter pointed out. We've spent days in gathering information so we can make an educated vote. But I don't believe that there's anyone on this board tonight that wants to take the vote to waive our first right of refusal. If town meeting authorizes a funding mechanism, then this board, I would believe from the comments that I heard, would vote to purchase the land. But we cannot vote to purchase the land without a funding mechanism in place. So we're not looking to just say, go develop this land. I think you heard it from all 5 members tonight. This hearing will be left open, it will be continued, and we will gather additional information for all of the questions that you raised. We can put it on our next agenda. The timeline, I will either have town council or the town manager address, because information has to get to town meeting members within a certain time frame, and there's a specific timeline for this, and that's why we were looking at that November date. But if it's at all possible to schedule the meeting in December as we originally had discussed, I would support that. But I think there was an issue with someone challenging the town meeting authorization and the appeals period. So do you want to address just the timeline, and not all the questions tonight, but the timeline?
Certainly. Initially, we had recommended to the board that they look at a potential date of December 2nd. But then it was brought to our attention that someone could file for a referendum vote after a town meeting vote. And you needed to have enough time for that expiration appeal period to expire on it. So therefore, we had to back it up by 1 week to give enough time, because the board, to make a vote, if there was a referendum vote pending and you didn't know the results of the appeal, you would be making a vote that would not be valid. So unfortunately, we had to back it up. Actually, the date fell on Thanksgiving week. To have it the week before Thanksgiving, you don't have enough time to prepare the warrants and send them out to the public based on information from the town clerk. And I believe, if you just give me a minute, that notification period is in here. There's also a holiday on November 11th, which is Veterans Day, and that would be the 14th day prior to a town meeting of November 25th, so you actually have to have the notices out by November 10th. And there's a tight window there. We can back it up and see if you could do it. Again, we would have to check with the town clerk, because much of this falls on her. This was the timeline that she had given us as the tight as possible. We can look and see if we could back it up to the week prior to Thanksgiving, but if I recall, there was a concern with getting everything ready and in the mail in time for November.
And what would happen if enough people were traveling that week that we couldn't even get a quorum at town meeting? We're really in trouble then. So, I mean, have we looked at what Mr. Maher brought up? Is there a possibility for an extension? I don't.
Excuse me, we can't have people yelling out from the audience. I'm going to ask town council to address that question.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not aware of any rights to extend the 120-day period under the statute. The statute provides for 120 days for the town to examine and make a decision on whether it wants to exercise a first refusal option to meet the bona fide offer. There is a right, if you were to exercise it, when you enter into a purchase and sale agreement, there is a right under the statute to extend that time period from 90 days to something that's agreed upon. I'm not aware, as I read this statute, and I've read it several times, I'd be more than happy to talk to Mr. Maher afterwards and explore this further. But my reading of this, just so everybody's clear, my reading of this right now is that that 120-day period is not a negotiable period of time. That is set by statute.
Mr. Carpenter?
Just a quick question. We're talking about referendums. If we put in the town meeting article a 2.5 override, does that nullify the referendum, or that does not?
It would, Madam Chairman, through you to Mr. Carpenter, you would result in not having an appropriation, and you then would not be able to exercise your right of first option to purchase, because you wouldn't have an appropriation to do it.
Okay. Thank you.
Briefly.
Yes. Why couldn't they take the vote tonight?
You do have the right to ask for a 125-day extension. It is strictly voluntary on the part of the landowner. I was intimately involved representing Holy Cross College on the acquisition of the Beaton parcel, which the attorney for this developer represented the seller. The selectmen requested of Holy Cross and the landowner a voluntary 125-day extension. It was granted by the landowner and the college. I was representing the college in that matter as a real estate advisor. It's in here. I can dig it out and show it to you, but you do have the right to request a 125-day extension from Mr. Post, but it's voluntary on Mr. Post's part. He can say no.
Madam Chairman, if I just clarify, that's what I'm getting at. There's no absolute right to an extension. That's how I was asking things. In terms of exploring the option with the seller, that's certainly on the table.
Doesn't hurt to ask.
Correct.
And is that the seller and the potential buyer who has signed a purchase and sale?
Correct.
Mr. Hammond? And then I'll recognize Mr. Simonian.
So knowing that, I guess I'm a little confused because with the exception of Mr. Simonian, who's only taken the actual position that he is for the purchase of the land publicly, everyone else said they were for bringing it to town meeting and for bringing it to a vote. But no one said professionally or personally whether they are for the purchase and support the investment. So that's my one question is, are you personally and professionally for this so people can judge your decisions, because you do have more meetings than the average person and have more knowledge, or should have more knowledge. Secondly, if Mr. Hennigan, what I heard he said, there will be no vote on this, because there's just certainly not enough time unless the seller decides he'll wait. So your solution is nil. So now I'm going to ask the Board of Selectmen to please be leaders, take a position, bring this to town meeting. You have 1 week to figure out how to fund it and do it. We had 120 days. You waited. You chose to wait, or whether by design or by incompetence, you waited till the last minute. You've left yourself no outs. Now it's time to lead, take a position, find the money. There will be no vote. Stop giving people hope that doesn't exist. Thank you.
Inquire of town council, can't we have a town meeting vote and just vote to purchase it and set it for a vote date in the annual town election?
Through you, Madam Chairman, if I may, to Mr. Maha, that, in my opinion, you could do that, but you would not be able to enter into a purchase and sale agreement that would be binding in order to purchase this land. So the question becomes is whether you're actually made a decision to purchase it within that 120 days, because you would not have money to do it, and your money would be contingent upon the result of that particular vote.
Okay, because we've heard here tonight that we just have to have a funding mechanism in place. Couldn't we argue that we have a funding mechanism in place if we have a town meeting vote, say after the 120-day extension, and then at that point, when does the time begin to toll on this? I mean, we would have to have time for an election, a possible override. I don't think anybody's going to go out and collect 300 signatures to challenge a town meeting vote that has in it a Proposition 2.5 election requirement. So I don't think that's really something that's going to happen. But anyways, when do you see, Mr. Hennigan, when it will start to toll the time on this?
The time on the 120 days, through you, Madam Chairman? The time on the 120 days?
Yes.
That has already started to toll as of August 13th.
So if we get another 120 days on top of that?
Again, I answered the question that I don't see anything in the statute based on whether we could, without the assent of the seller and the buyer, exercise an additional 120 days. If the seller and the buyer agree in some fashion, and there's some mechanism whether they have to withdraw this one and file anew to start another 120-day period or not, that could be explored. And that's what I'm suggesting we could certainly take a look at and have that conversation with the seller and the buyer. But without that assent, without that agreement, your 120 days started August 13th, terminate December 10th.
Thank you. Mr. Simonian?
Yeah, I just want to comment on the fact that, you know, and I know it's kind of just thrown out there, but there's already been a mention of a 2.5 override as a funding mechanism, debt exclusion as a funding mechanism, and I don't believe it's necessary. And I'm going to tell you right now why I don't believe it. Any of you who are town meeting members, any of you who have watched town meeting, I've sat up here for 4.5 years, and I've seen it over and over and over again. In this town, whenever it's something that the town wants, a department, town administration, whatever it is, we've creatively found ways to fund things. We've moved around money that was borrowed years ago. We've done tons of things to fund things without doing overrides. So I'm telling you right now, it's being thrown out there. Same thing happened with the middle school. I didn't believe it then. I don't believe it now. It's not going to be necessary. That's my opinion. I will not support any kind of override to do this.
Mr. Carpenter?
Well, in that,
I'm sorry.
we have short on time with town meeting. Would it be possible to meet as a board next Monday, have a special meeting and answer some of these questions?
I don't have my calendar in front of me, but I don't have any objection to meeting.
Well, that date was proposed for a joint meeting, but I mean, I think that would be something we could push back. This is much more important.
What's next Monday?
In my opinion.
Third.
I think it's November 3rd.
Can we meet next Monday to get some of this information?
Yes,
But the clock is still ticking on the town meeting action, so can we take the vote to send it to town meeting and still get I mean, we have to take a vote on sending it to town meeting.
Through the chair, when we were trying to anticipate all of the options available to the board, including the purchase of the land, we intentionally put an item on the agenda for you to vote tonight to establish a town meeting. The question has now come back to us whether we can have it before November 25th. We could do that on November 18th, assuming the notices could be delivered on November 3rd, which would be the required 14 days. And I say the 3rd because the required 14 starts on the next day.
Yes.
So they would have to go out next Monday. With only one article on it, it's not too problematic to actually send them out. The issue that we would have to address would be that we're required under the charter to have a finance committee recommendation on
Well, they can take a position after the fact.
warrant articles. So we would have to talk to the finance committee, who would have to have a meeting between now and then to take a position on it, and we would also have to verify that the school was open and available. So,
Well, we have the chair and members of the finance committee here right now.
They can't deliberate without calling a meeting. We can ask them to call a meeting, but they're not posted. They can't deliberate without calling for a meeting.
we don't know if the 18th is available at the high school.
This is important.
No.
Chairman Hussey? We're discussing requesting the finance committee to schedule a special meeting to take a position. Is that something, as chairman, you're able to look at?
I believe a request is out for Monday being available to my committee. We're just waiting here for next, I think.
Monday or Wednesday.
Well, that's the joint meeting.
That's the joint
So
meeting.
that's actually on the agenda, I believe.
Okay.
We change the agenda and take off.
Could you just come up to the microphone, please, so everyone at home can hear you?
The joint meeting.
No, but what is he saying? It's changed.
Hi, Kevin Hussey. I believe we're actually just waiting to hear back about having enough people to attend the meeting, so we could change the agenda. It actually was on it to just address the South Hold Road issue.
Okay, or we could meet jointly to address the South Holt Road, recess and then continue our additional meeting.
Sure. My guess is we're going to be spending some time on that, and I believe the other budget items on that, we probably could defer till, a later date. So that's fine. Sharon, have we heard it back?
Almost. Yeah. It was for the 3rd or the 5th, you said.
Right. Do we have a quorum? amongst the Finance Committee, and that would be excluding me for this item. We still have a quorum?
Yes.
Okay. Just to be clear anyways, and I'm not in the butter, I do live on Packagug Hill. I have to recuse myself from any deliberations on Southold Road due to some past professional interactions I have that I've got to keep at arm's length. So anything regarding this, I'll not be at that part of the meeting or not at that meeting for that reason, just to be clear. But I know we've got a few Finance Committee people here right now, certainly with a lot of interest in this, and informally anyways, there's at least 2 that I've spoken with that are available. Mrs. Holstrom, that would be 3 right there.
Which would constitute a quorum.
There we go.
We're not posted, so we're going to be careful that we don't have 3 members from the Finance Committee speak.
Exactly. So it's a small
For a
town sometimes, isn't it?
deliberation, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Carpenter?
I don't think it's
Yeah,
a
I see.
deliberation to have a meeting. I don't think they're not deciding a vote. They're deciding whether they're going to meet. So I don't think that they've done anything that's in violation of the open meeting law. My recommendation for the November 3rd meeting is just to deal with this. Whatever else issue can be delayed. We shouldn't have to shortchange the public by worrying about, are we going to get to this agenda, that agenda, which is, that's my 2 cents.
Okay. In the back, please.
Again, Kurt Shallow, 6 Stonebridge Road. I just want to be clear, are you guys not in support of asking for the extension?
I'd be happy to.
It's not that we said we're not in support. The statute doesn't require a 120-day. If the developer or the property owner declines, but we're certainly happy to ask for the extension.
So we will ask for an extension?
We will, but based on the information we have tonight, we have to move forward with this timeline.
I get it. So parallel things, right? One,
absolutely.
Hurry up and see what we can do here, because, no impact of fire, but we're treating this thing like a 4-alarm fire as we stand here, okay? And the reality is, now we're under the gun. Everyone's rushing, right? Everyone's rushing. Everyone's trying to figure out how to move meetings, pull people together for $3 million, open space, and a future, and something that's forever. We should reflect on this at some point. Here's the other thing I'd ask. I do believe you ought to ask for the extension. I am certain that the developer is watching this. I am certain they're getting a recording. And I am certain if they refuse a 120-day extension, you'll have your answer to the friendly or not friendly 40B. Thank you.
Well, okay, this is your last time up, though. You have to come, excuse me, you have to come to the microphone so everyone can hear you.
I just want to make sure this panel has the accurate information. I'll meet with Mr. Hennigan after the meeting. You do not have to ask the developer. It's strictly within the preview of the property owner on the 125-day extension, and it's strictly voluntary. You could actually take a vote tonight to authorize the town manager to communicate that, subject to Mr. Hennigan's approval. And that way you can get that right out the door and get that off the table. He's either going to say yes or no. So that's something really simple you could do.
We are going to ask for the extension. Did you want to address any issues before we take any action?
Just the issue with regard to town meeting. We were just discussing if we wanted to back it up 1 week, we have to get that notice out by Monday. I believe we can do that. We can work with the town clerk's office. It's a simple article. What we would not, and this is a question to town council, we do not know the location where that would be right now, because if the high school isn't available, we would have to find an alternate location, which I'm sure we can. But when the board takes a vote tonight to establish town meeting, do they have to vote the location as well?
No, I think if you establish the date, the location can be created and established with the notice.
So we could, you could look at the agenda item tonight. We did prepare a draft warrant article, assuming that the board wanted to do this. It would just, you would also need to vote to have a town meeting then on November 18th. That gets everything in motion. We're well within that timeline. You still have plenty of opportunity. You've still given yourself enough time, should there be any kind of appeal or referendum process, you're not jeopardizing your vote. And I do want to address one issue related to finding the funds. The board has directed me to come here tonight and provide you with some cost impacts that you can think about based on what you heard at your meeting on October 14th. Again, best we could do, I recognize they are estimates and they are guesstimates without having the developer specify what he was looking at. He did mention it was going to be similar to the reserves at Holden. That's why that project was used. The developer himself said it would be like that project. That was 192 units. We used 190. That's actually 192 units on 90 acres, so it may not even be that large, but because he said that was the project he was looking at, we felt it was fair to use that number. As far as finding the money, the board at this point was not ready to direct me to find the money. Obviously, when and if they say that you need to find the money, that's what we'll do. We are following the direction of the board. Someone said it, and they're right. This is not a decision of the town manager. This is a decision of the Board of Selectmen. But the Board of Selectmen has asked for information that they can use to make their decision as easy as they can. It's not an easy decision. The best we can do is provide the information that we've been given. We can certainly and will follow up on all of these questions and try to get you as much information as we can. We want the board to be informed, and we want the public to be informed. And I just do want to comment on the fact that nothing has happened until tonight, and I just want to make sure people understand. 4 town boards and commissions were notified. All 4 of them have discussed it at least once at public meetings. This would be the 5th public meeting that's actually been held. This is actually a public hearing versus a public meeting, but the boards have been doing their due diligence. ZBA met, Concom met, and Planning Board met, and they all did discuss the issue. So it has been out there. In the interim, there have been, as you can see, a lot of research and homework to try to get the best information we can. If the whole intent of a public hearing like this is to get more information and to get more questions, and I think that's been successful because those issues that have been raised are issues that we can look at. There are multiple ways to fund, and when we come up and the board is ready to ask us to provide that information to them, we can show you what the impacts are. We've already done the analysis on some of the tax impacts, but it's premature because we don't know what the board is going to do. We have those impacts, we can provide them to you. Regarding the bond rating, I would say whenever you use excess levy or stabilization, the Board of Selectmen and Finance Committee do have written financial policies that establish what they should be spending and how they should be allocating their money during the budget process. To use any of the either reserves, excess levy, or stabilization will have an impact on the bond rating. I can't tell you what it will be, but those are 3 of the areas that we are rated on. So we're trying to take into consideration, and we will provide this to the board, the information on what areas of money could be used to purchase something like this, but we need to make sure the board understands what the financial impacts are. If it affects the bond rating, if it changes our cost of borrowing on the middle school for $20 million, then that's something the board needs to know. So when the board directs us, which I'm assuming tonight the board would probably tell us, to go and look at financial options. Again, tonight we were asked to just show the fiscal impacts of the development as we best know it from the developer. If the board would like us to come back at the next meeting, whenever you schedule that, we can then come back with more financial information based on a potential purchase, as well as the answer to a number of these questions.
Thank you. Mrs. Holstrom?
Mrs. Jacobson might have just answered my question, but I just want to be sure. At your November 3rd meeting, will we have the impact on the average homeowner of whether it's a 2.5 override or using excess levy? The cost of $2.9 million is going to be on the homeowners of Auburn. What is that number? I'd like to have that number available at your next meeting.
If I may, Madam Chair, to Kim, I can tell you that we already ran several models ranging from a borrowing for a 10-year period up to a 30-year period. It does qualify for up to 30 years, so we know the tax rate impact. On the 15 tax rate, it's anywhere from 10 cents per thousand to 20 cents per thousand, all depending on the length of time you're going out to borrow the money. I can tell you the town does have the ability through excess levy, and I'm not recommending this, but they could raise all of that in 1 year through a single appropriation. It would cost the taxpayers about $800 for 1 year, for the average home at about $229,000. That is not a popular option, but that is an option that we would present. We could raise it all in 1 year if we had to, and I know that was mentioned tonight, that we had the ability to do it through the tax levy. But there are consequences by doing that as well. It would revert back to excess levy once used in year one, because it's not part of a permanent operational side of the budget. It's a one-time expense.
So if you used excess levy that we have available to, and didn't go to the voters for $2.8 million, it would cost a $229,000 house an additional $800 for
1 year only.
on top of whatever we're paying, the $4,000 we're paying now?
Here's the problem. We wouldn't have the ability to do that because we would have to pay the seller within, say, a 90-day period, once a decision is made. Because we are setting the tax rate, tax classification is happening on November 10th. Once the tax rate is set, you don't have the ability to raise any more money unless it's coming from available funds. If it's coming from tax levy, that window is closed as of mid-November. In order to do that, you would have to go to town meeting for a single appropriation, raise and appropriate $2.865 million, which you would have to raise on the FY15 levy in order to make that 90-day period. So that's not going to happen, but you do have the ability to raise in subsequent years. You could lessen the length of time you're going out to borrow money by paying it off quicker.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Did any board members have anything else? No? Go ahead.
I do want to answer the gentleman who asked about the assessed value. Again, please understand, we were asked to look at 25 single-family homes, which is what the developer proposed. The town, if we buy it, we would have 21 of those lots. The other 4 are not in chapter lands. So the developer stated here at a meeting that he was looking at 3 to 4 bedroom homes. He did not tell us the value of those, did not tell us the type of construction, the materials used, all of the things that you generally use. So in order to come up with something to give you some indicators, and again, until we get plans from the developer in hand, we don't have that. We went to the assessor's office and we looked at the cost of a 3 to 4 bedroom home in that neighborhood, on that type of parcel, and looked at the comps. And the comp that came back to us was $400,000. So that is what we use as an assessed value. It could be more, it could be less. We don't know that, and I'm not going to argue it either way, because again, it is just based on, we were asked to come up with some figures for 25 homes. Maybe there's 600,000. That's not what the assessed value is. So it's based on the assessed valuation that the assessors use by their DOR formulas. So I did want to mention that, and also the last thing on the traffic, a lot of the traffic information, the town won't be able to come back to you with responses to traffic per se, because we don't have a plan in front of us. That is something that happens when there is a plan. So we don't have a plan for how the developer is accessing or egressing the site. That has to come out if that goes forward. If it not, clearly it's a non-issue. But right now, a traffic impact analysis is done by a developer. You need to have the development facts before you do the development of the traffic impact. So that may be an area that, while the board and the residents may be disappointed, I don't believe we can actually answer traffic impact analysis at this stage.
I had said I was going to allow everyone once, but if you have a question that you are looking for information for our next meeting, I'll allow you to come up, because we are going to continue this meeting to next week. And there's quite a list of questions that we need to get information for.
If we could go back for the next meeting and get a closer look at how you arrived at 400,000, because I open the Telegram-Gazette every Sunday to see what they sell houses for in Auburn, and I haven't seen one in 2 years that's selling for $400,000. So they might be selling, they might be assessed for $400,000, but I'm sure they're not selling for $400,000. So I don't know how we're going to assess them if they're not going to sell for 400,000. That's the first one. The second one is, whatever we bring back, and whether we keep it as open space or buy the land and then sell the lots, can we factor in what we're going to sell the lots for too? Because it seems like that seems to get lost in the conversation about what the ultimate cost would be if we did that. That's the only request I have.
That was in the presentation.
No, I understand that, but the dialogue doesn't seem to bring that into the conversation. That's the only point I'm trying to make.
Is there anything else anyone wants to add before we are going to continue? Is everyone available for next Monday? We are going to continue this hearing to next Monday at 7 p.m. Everyone is welcome. We've taken extensive notes and we'll get additional information, not just for board members, but for residents. What I expect or hope to happen next is first we'll take a vote to request that the town manager with town council request a 120-day extension, and we'll report to you whether the seller has agreed to that. But we are also going to move forward with scheduling a town meeting so that we can take action to exercise our first right of refusal if town meeting authorizes an appropriation. Again, the only funding mechanism that was discussed that this board could take would be using excess levy, and if the town is going to spend $3 million, I certainly think that needs to go to the voters, not just 5 members of the Board of Selectmen taking that vote. As Mr. Kazanovich just said, it's a significant impact. And regarding a position that this board will take on whether we support the purchase of this land, we'll have additional information next week. This board always takes a position on warrant articles, so the warrant article will ask town meeting to authorize an appropriation for the funding of the purchase of this land. And this board, I can't speak for my other board members, will take a vote on whether they support that warrant article. Again, I don't want people to think that we came in here with, with closed minds and we were going to exercise our first right of refusal. Decline our first right of refusal. This is, we've said all along, we're looking for it to go to town meeting to determine whether they will authorize funding and ultimately send it to the voters. Do board members have anything else? Mr. Carpenter.
Just one thing to your point. The public is expressing their frustration, and I think it's well-placed frustration with the timetable that they've been confronted with tonight. So, for myself, I will happily apologize to you that we seem to be a little behind the 8 ball. And that shouldn't happen, and that's not fair to you, and it's not fair to the residents of the town. So for myself, I'll take full responsibility and apologize, and I think we're going to have a good result out of this, despite the poor start. So thank you all.
So first, I'll entertain a motion to ask the town manager and town council to request a 120-day extension on this process.
I'll make a motion. Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So voted. Next, I'll entertain a motion to move up agenda item 5A and 5B.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, those items? This is continued action on this item if you just want to wait for a couple more minutes, okay? Not yet, not yet. So the next action this board is going to take is consideration for a special town meeting on Tuesday, November 25th, and a vote to open and close the warrant.
18th.
I'm sorry, November 18th. Is there a motion to...
Motion to
schedule
consideration for a special town meeting on Tuesday, November 18th, 2014.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So voted. The next vote we'll be taking is a vote to open the warrant and close the warrant on Tuesday, November 18th. And in your packet, there is a suggested proposed article for this town meeting, and this town meeting would have one
If we're scheduling it for the 18th, wouldn't we have to close the warrant prior to the 18th?
That's what, we have to open and close it tonight.
Oh, okay, all right.
We're going to open it, we're going to have one proposed article, and then close town meeting.
Motion to open the warrant for the special town meeting on Tuesday, November 18th, 2014.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, so voted? And is there a motion to approve the proposed warrant article for a town meeting?
Before we do that, do we need to worry about tweaking it in any way?
I think the language is... Go ahead,
Madam Chairman,
I'll give
through
you a minute to...
This is a placeholder type language. We would tweak it if you were to accept this and put it on. If there was any tweaks necessary, we would certainly do that.
All right, I will make a motion that we place the proposed article on the warrant.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, so voted? Is there a motion to close the town meeting warrant?
Motion to close the warrant for the special town meeting on Tuesday, November 18th, 2014.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, so voted? Is there a motion to continue this hearing to next Monday at
So
7 p.m.?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, so voted? Is
Motion
there a...
for a 5-minute
motion for a
recess to clear the
5-minute
room.
recess? Is there a second? All those in favor? Any opposed? We are in recess for 5 minutes. Going to call the meeting back to order. Because we have town council here, I'm going to ask that we move up agenda item 8B.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So voted. So, Mr. Simonian has an agenda item on discussion of investigation into an allegation made against a municipal employee made at the August 25th, 2014 Board of Selectmen meeting. And I'll just say, Mr. Simonian, that Mr. Hennigan has just cautioned us that we cannot discuss the investigation because the board has already taken a vote and the investigation has already begun, and we cannot discuss the character or professional reputation of a town employee.
I have no intention of, my comments are specific to what was discussed in the open meeting last week. I think that it's something the residents should know about because it was done in a non-televised selectmen meeting, and it has the potential to spend a lot of tax dollars. And I'd just like to raise a couple of points that this board, with the exception of me, voted to authorize an investigation that had no specific scope to it. And I'm gonna go off my notes here.
And I'm looking to you for guidance, Mr. Hennigan, if
we have no idea what the potential cost is with no specific scope of the investigation identified. To me, it seems like we don't know what's being investigated. We don't know what the cost will be, and potentially it could just be a witch hunt looking for anything. So that is why I did not support, one of the reasons why I didn't support the investigation going forward, because that vote was not clear as to what is actually being investigated. Secondly, for an investigation of this type, there are several state agencies that I think would be better in a position to possibly investigate. The town manager specifically stated that the town reached out to one of those entities, to Secretary Galvin's office, and they were very clear and said that the election was over, it was validated, there was nothing to investigate as far as they were concerned, and they were not interested in any kind of investigation. So we're setting a precedent here, because the town, prior to this, and the example that I'll specifically use because it's been public, I believe it was my first year on the board, there was claims of issues with our dog officer at the time, acting tree warden and whatever. That was referred to a state agency to investigate.
Is that executive session material?
Nope, I'm not discussing, that, we did that in a public hearing.
Okay.
We questioned that person in a public hearing.
Okay.
So there's no, so I don't know why,
That
we
person,
would-
I believe, it's my recollection that that person had the option to discuss it in executive session or open session.
Madam Chairman, I don't believe I was involved.
No, that person appeared in public session with an attorney, I believe, and
Because
the
they-
attorney answered the questions that the board had, so that was all done in open session.
Right,
And
because
I'm not-
they
I'm not-
waived the right to have an executive
Which
session.
is fine. I'm just saying that the investigation that was done by a state agency. So, again, there are other entities that if anyone feels that this warrants an investigation, it's not something that the town should be doing. So, I'd like to know why the town's moving forward with what could be a costly investigation, funded by the taxpayers. Again, the vote was taken off camera, though it was done in an open session. And why did town administration ask for permission to conduct an investigation that had no specific scope? Why is it a secret as to what is actually being investigated? I've also, I asked the question of the town manager at that meeting, who would be conducting the investigation? And her answer to me was her, Mr. Hennigan, and the town clerk. Now, Mr. Hennigan and the town clerk were both part of a meeting that took place with the poll checker who observed what I commented on August 25th. And during that meeting, the town clerk admitted to being a witness to what actually happened. So again, since they were both in that meeting, I don't understand how two people who could potentially be witnesses could conduct an investigation. To me, that seems to be a conflict of interest. Again, you know, what are we doing here? And I would further like to add that I did ask that if I specifically asked at the meeting last week, if there was going to be an investigation, that it be conducted by a state agency or independent third party. That was shot down. And, you know, for the record, I mean, it's no, no secret that members of this board have shown an open hostility towards me, including fabricating stories in the press about me, but I'm expected to believe that the town will conduct a fair and impartial hearing when they're already allowing potential witnesses to be part of the investigation. I don't understand why we're wasting time and money to launch the investigation when it seems that a simple question to the town clerk would put this to bed. And again, since Mr. Henning and the town clerk were part of that meeting and part of that discussion and potentially could be witnesses, I don't understand how they can conduct the investigation. And lastly, it's not my responsibility to figure out why what happened, but it certainly is my responsibility as an elected official by the people of this town to bring forward an issue. When I'm being asked to appoint or approve a list, I'm not doing my due diligence to the people of this town if I don't bring forward an issue that I'm aware of. Again, not my job to determine how or why it happened, but certainly to inform people of information that I was made aware of. Lastly, this matter specifically represents a paid position that was being sought by a person that the Board of Selectmen Chair has publicly stated time and time again was a close personal friend. Based on this, I asked the Chair to recuse herself from the vote. She refused to do so and also stated that she didn't have to answer to anyone as to why. I'm again asking her to recuse herself from any votes that have anything to do with this matter. I don't believe that she should be involved in this in any way, shape, or form. But those are my reasons why I did not support the town doing an investigation. There's no scope. It's essentially a witch hunt. We don't know what the specifics of the investigation are. They were not given to us. And it's your dime that's paying for it when there are state agencies that could do it with no cost to you. So, I'm just addressing some of the comments that were made at the meeting last week and bringing it to the public's attention that it was done in a session that wasn't televised, so you're probably not aware that it did happen.
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes, well, I do want to address, I did know what the scope was because I called the town manager and I asked her when I saw this on our agenda, and she gave me some background, and the reality is the town manager is doing the investigation. The town clerk will be giving a report because she's the chief elections officer in the town, and she, from what I've heard from the August 25th meeting, was there. Second, I've asked that members address an issue, not an individual. I have sat here for 4 or 5 months, and I've had to endure attacks on other members, and I, for one, am tired of it. I am too up to here. Let's talk about the issue, not about the individual. Let us have an open discussion where we all are respectful of each other. I don't feel that that's happening, and I'm personally offended by the comments. I do my due diligence. When I see something, I get the same agenda as everybody else. I have the same 3 days to call and ask, what's going on? What are we going to do? Having said that, an employee of the community came to the town manager. She was publicly accused, or at least affiliated with a potential very serious crime, which, as a former registrar of voters, I take very seriously. I put on voter projects for students, not just in Auburn, but in the 10 community Bay Path school, which involved me driving around on my time to drop off mail-in registrations. So when we make comments, we have to own those comments. We have to be respectful when we have issues. So, in fact, at the meeting, I was the first one to suggest, and I suggested to the town manager that we do have an outside person. She did looked into that. The avenue was not open. You asked us to give you outside counsel. I thought that was premature. I personally have no dog in the fight. I'm not going to say, nor do I want town officials to be accused of conducting a witch hunt. We have to respect our town officials if we want to be respected. So when we talk about an issue, let's address the issue, not individual board members. Let's not attack each other. Let us come to a decision. We have come to a decision on this. I'm comfortable with the vote that I took. I'm happy to explain it to anybody who has a question. Our town manager has done nothing, in my eyes, to warrant the accusation that it's a witch hunt. She has been tasked from this board with doing a professional job. She is a professional. The town clerk is a professional. The people who work for us in elections are professionals. They work hard. They do their job. They have been accused in multiple elections of doing something wrong. I have never seen anyone file a complaint with the Secretary of State. Any issue I've ever heard of, the town clerk has resolved by calling the Secretary of State's office, legal counsel, getting an opinion. So it isn't even the town clerk making the decision. She's seeking advice from the chief elections official of the Commonwealth. So to suggest that somehow we're doing you a disservice is both disrespectful to me as a member, it is a disrespect to the town officials who are tasked with these responsibilities. And again, this is an issue. Let's talk about the issue. Let's not attack the chairman. Let's not attack Mr. Holstrom. Let's not attack Mrs. Brotherton or myself. Let us talk about the issue. Personally, the reason I believe Mrs. Goodrich does not recuse herself is because being a friend of someone isn't a conflict. If you read the law, it isn't a conflict. There are specific standards. Being a member of the Democratic Town Committee, of which I am a member, and I can tell you I attend all the meetings. Your name doesn't come up, Steve.
I never said it did. I don't know why you're even bringing that up.
go back.
Because in
go
the
back and
past,
forth.
you've always mentioned the Auburn Town Democratic Committee. I'm a member of the Auburn Town Democratic Committee.
I
and-
disagree.
We're not
Go
going
to
to have
the
a
tape.
back and forth.
But
Mr.
anyways, you know what? This investigation is needed so that an employee of the town who has been accused of a very serious offense gets some closure. And the voters will get their closure by this investigation.
Mr. Holstrom was next. He asked to be recognized the same time Mr. Carpenter did.
That's fine, I'm good here, thank you.
Okay, you heard enough, okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Simone.
Well, first of all, I don't understand how this is perceived as me attacking anyone. I'm stating a fact, and stating why, on the issue, I disagree with the investigation. Town reached out to a state entity. State entity said, we're not interested, it's over and done with. But yet the town has chosen to continue with an investigation for reasons that were not disclosed to me. To me, that's a waste of taxpayer money, because I don't know what's being investigated here. And I will once again reiterate, there were no accusations made. I brought a point to this board that was admitted to by the town clerk and was witnessed by her and a poll checker. I never accused anyone of anything. I don't know what the reason is that it happened. I don't know if it was incompetence, poor training, intent. I have no idea. I'm not the judge, jury, executioner. My point is, we were asked to either approve or disapprove of names on a list. I gave a reason why I would not approve of one of the people. Plain and simple. I didn't accuse anyone of anything. I just stated that I was made aware that it happened. I would expect the same of any other member of this board here to do the same, to inform me if they were aware of something that I was not aware of, so that I could vote with all the information at hand and not some of the information. So I apologize if you're taking this personally. I'm not making it personal. I'm just saying, I think that for us to go forward with an investigation after the state said we're not interested is really does seem like it's an attempt to go after one or two individuals. If the state entities are not interested in doing an investigation, why are we turning around and wasting money to do it? Why don't we respect the opinion of the state? I don't know. Seems like a special circumstance. It's my opinion.
Town manager?
If I may, because I obviously was at that meeting, and it was a public meeting, and I'll just reiterate what I said at that meeting, and town council can repeat. The reason for the investigation was not because I asked for the investigation. The reason for the investigation is because a town municipal employee under state law, who was a poll worker, felt that she had been accused of something very serious, wanted to know what her rights were as a town employee. Contacted the chair of the Board of Selectmen, because the accusation came from the select board. The chair, as she does with other issues, called me and asked me to get the opinion on it from a legal perspective. So spoke to town council recommended, watched the tape, said that there were serious allegations that were made, and that he recommended that we conduct an investigation. When asked who was going to conduct it, I said the town manager and the town council, and that the town clerk would be providing a report, as Mr. Carpenter has said. She would be providing a report on the process. Beyond that, the cost is the cost of town council being involved in it. I don't know what that cost will be, but the cost will likely be less than had the board voted to have the independent investigation, which was on the table, and I believe that vote was, the vote was not approved to have an independent investigator. It was on the table, it was a possibility. There was no proposal to have the town go to the state and find apparently an agency that would do this for free. I'm not aware of that. I'd love to find out if there is. Certainly willing to look at that, but the only organization I was asked to look into was the Secretary of State's office. I talked to the clerk's office. She explained to me how the Secretary of State's office do not get involved in issues that happened on a certified and closed election. And it is my understanding that this was in relation to an issue from May of 2013. So I just want to be clear. I did not initiate asking for an investigation. It was a recommendation to me from town council to have an investigation, and likewise to get a report from the town clerk on that. And I don't want to speak for town council, I'd rather have him speak, just clarify anything I might have said that's not right.
Madam Chairman, through you, I have nothing else to further. That's exactly what happened.
Thank you. Mr. Simonian?
Yeah, so again, I don't understand the statement by the town manager. She's not aware of any other state agency. Well, let's see, there's the Inspector General, there's the Ethics Commission, there's the Attorney General, Labor Board. Any of those, I would think, would be a better entity to investigate this than the town. You reached out to one state authority, they said we're not interested, so the town decided we're going to conduct our own investigation. Again, I raised the point, Mr. Hennigan was part of a meeting where the town clerk admitted that it happened, so I don't see how he can be part of the investigation. He's a potential witness. Doesn't make sense to me. I've said my piece.
Does anyone else have anything? Okay, thank you, Mr. Hennigan.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Can I just say
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Carpenter has one.
So Stephen, you've not talked to town council? Because
I haven't had an opportunity.
Okay, because at the last meeting, we were just going to let it go, and we said, you can talk to town council. So if you have questions, I would ask you to avail yourself of that option. And just like I've been told, if you have a question on an agenda item, to pick up the phone and call and ask the question. If you have a question, you have to ask it. It's not how I want it, necessarily. I've asked for more information, and I don't get it. So I ask, and that's what I do. So that's my recommendation to you, and I hope the next meeting we can have a more cordial meeting without this kind of back and forth.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Moving on, we have communications, and we have from the Police Chief, Andy Slucas, regarding recommended hours for trick-or-treating. I am once again recommending that trick-or-treat hours be announced as 5 to 7 p.m. on Halloween. The police department will have additional officers working during those hours to help ensure that we have as safe a trick-or-treat as possible. Respectfully, Chief Slucas. Is there a motion to accept the recommendation of the chief?
Make a motion, we accept the recommendation of the chief for hours of trick-or-treating for 2014.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Mr. Simonian?
Yeah, I'd like to ask the board to consider, I understand the chief's recommendation, but I'd like to ask the board to consider just a half-hour change from 5:30 to 7:30. And the reason for that is, every year, I receive phone calls just before Halloween and just after, especially when it's on a weekday. There's a large amount of people in this town who work. They have small children. They don't get home in time to give their kids dinner and get them out. They miss a lot of the night. They barely get a chance to get out. I'm asking that we consider, this really is about the little kids. So, a half hour doesn't really seem to make that much of a difference, but to them, it seems to make a large difference in their ability to get home, get their kids dinner, and then get out there so that they can, participate in the events of the night. So I'm just asking the board to consider a half-hour shift.
So, I actually had a discussion with Patsy and Sue earlier regarding the 5 p.m. There's a couple other communities who restricted from 5 to 6, which is really restrictive. I have no problems supporting 5:30 to 7:30. I would just ask that we have, pending approval of the chief of police. He may have already, where he states in his letter that he will have additional officers. I don't know, contractually what he's arranged, so I'll support the proposed 5:30 to 7:30, pending approval from the chief. Otherwise, I would support the chief's 5 to 7.
I'll amend my motion to 5:30 to 7:30, pending approval of the chief.
Otherwise, 5 to 7 on Halloween?
Otherwise, 5 to 7.
Is there a second on that?
Second.
Is there further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So voted. So we've handled Board of Selectmen, item A, B, C. In your packet, you have a change of office of hours off-premises license for Shri Keepa Corporation doing business as Mass Discount Liquors, 844 Southbridge Street, enclosed are the required forms, and a notice from the ABCC. Is there a motion to approve the change of hours for off-premises license for Shri Keepa Corporation doing business as Mass Discount Liquors?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So voted. Moving on, we have gift acceptance. The first item we have is from Glenn Sherman in the amount of $100 to the Auburn Animal Shelter in memory of Matt Jacobson. Also from Bob and Bonnie Grossman in the amount of $50 to the Auburn Animal Shelter in memory of Matt Jacobson. And from Jean Benoit in the amount of $25 to the Auburn Animal Shelter in memory of Matt Jacobson.
Make a motion, we accept them with gratitude.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So voted. Moving on, we have town manager items.
Through the chair, thank you. The first item is, I just wanted to provide a notice of change of hours of Town Hall for Friday, November 21st. We will be holding an ALICE training, and I see the fire chief is here, so I might have him say a couple of words, but I just want to get the notice out there first. ALICE training is an active shooter drill, and this is something that is being done all across the country, not just in schools, but also in town buildings. Timing actually couldn't have been better, as you saw what happened last week in Ottawa at a official government building. Unfortunately, things do happen, but fortunately, there's a way to get people prepared for it, and that's what we are doing. So our fire chief and Sergeant Ken Charlton have attended Train the Trainer classes in ALICE, ALICE, which is a term basically meaning alert, lockdown, inform, counter, and evacuate. I have also attended a full training, as did the fire chief with me, and we believe that this is something we need to bring to Town Hall. When you do these trainings, and we've talked a lot about security and safety in Town Hall, when you do these trainings, there is a classroom component. So we will all be doing the classroom component on Monday, and there are 2 shifts, and all the employees who will be participating in this will be taking turns so that we know no change in Town Hall hours. We're organizing it so the offices can stay open. However, you need to have the training actually take place in the building. There are SWAT team members that will be here, and you cannot have the public in the building when that happens. So we are proposing that we're open from 8 to 10 in the morning on November 21st, and our training will then take place from 10 to 1 on that same day. To answer the question, why isn't this being done after 1 o'clock? There are a few issues with union members. If you have a 3-hour training, there could potentially be a grievance, and if there's not a grievance, there's certainly overtime that comes into effect, so we're trying to do this with no cost to the town. So we believe that closing Town Hall for 3 hours on a Friday is well worth the training. I want to take it one step further and tell you, once we get this training underway, it is our intent to offer it to all the boards and commissions in the evening and make it available for you as well. Chief, do you want to add anything? Okay. So this is notification. I'm just going to put this on the town website. We'll put it on social media, Auburn Community Television, and obviously we'll post it on the doors. But we wanted to make sure everybody knew that we were doing this.
Thank you. Do you have anything else?
I do.
Okay, there are no tabled items. Under Board of Selectmen items, Mr. Carpenter had asked that we have the Economic Development Committee results of a survey, and he's since asked to withdraw this and put it on the next meeting. Now, are you referring to next week or the next
10th.
regularly scheduled meeting? And who will be coming in to do the presentation?
Eric, the
Eric?
planner.
Eric, our town planner, will be coming in to do the presentation, and we'll put it under presentations as to not keep him waiting. Thank you. Is there any additional public comment? Chief?
I know it's been a long night, but I would just encourage you, we do have the SCBA equipment in the planning board room. If you could take a minute or
Yep.
two, we'd love to have you see it.
We'll be over in 2.5 minutes.
Available.
Yes. The town manager has something?
We may be requesting an executive session of the board to discuss an issue that we will probably post for that, but now that you're having a meeting November 3rd, I just wanted to ask if you would be available for an executive session prior to the meeting on the 3rd, and if not, your next regularly scheduled meeting is on the 10th.
What time are you asking about?
6:15 should be plenty of time. More than enough time. It would really probably take 15 to 20 minutes. Could even make it 6:30. I just didn't want to bump up too close to that 7 o'clock hour for any of you.
I can't, I've already scheduled a meeting with the assessor. It's the only time in my schedule that I've been able to meet with her prior to the tax classification, so.
Is that next
the 3rd
week?
or the 10th?
The 3rd.
So are you available for the 10th?
Isn't she gone
No.
next week?
No, I
Are you-
think
are you-
scheduled
I thought that was 4:30, Steve. Is it 4:30?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we could make this 6:30, or we could make it on the 10th.
I'd rather do it on the 10th. I mean, I'm gonna get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, be at work all day, come straight to the town hall. I'd like to at least go home for an hour and have
We'll
dinner
do it
with
on
my
the 10th.
family on the 3rd. So,
Well-
you know,
Well, do you need a vote?
No, I
Okay,
just,
we'll do it on the 10th.
So Sharon can work with you to schedule it and properly post it, so we'll post it for the 10th.
Okay. We have the minutes of May 27th, 2014. Are there any corrections or omissions, Mr. Carpenter?
I'm just going to ask that you hold it because I did not get a chance to read them.
Okay, we'll hold this to the next meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, is there anything else before the board? Is there a motion to adjourn?
to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Good night.